All right. Hello everyone. How are you guys doing? I see some people were here in the chat. Footlong Icicle as always, flexing with the golden guy, the golden Kappa. Who is Kappa? Like, because I see many of the Twitch emojis are inspired in like actual people. Were these like streamers back when Twitch was starting, and so they decided to give them some sort of rendition through this? Um, but yeah, Infinite Coder, hello. Bottom Pavok, question marks. So, good. It's just in time. I'm updating NixOS and making some tea after that. Yo, let's go. Cyrenito has some questions, and then since Kappa is king, brother, what is okay? Who is Jaque Popacap, brother? What? What? Why do we have a Labubu dancing like that? Hello, Donald Trump. Please say Jackie Coates. Wait, what? Who? Who is Kappa? Who? Who is Kappa? Josh DeSino, a former worker at Justin.tv. Oh, oh, interesting. Kappa. She. Wait. Oh, wait. I hadn't distinguished very well the Jackie Popacap emote. I see. Dude, I only saw somebody and then a gun being fired. I was like, what? Bro, what are we? Mimuri Carlos, bro. How? Anyways, for to not ask questions. Brother, what are these emotes? This like, what even is that image? I don't know what that image has. Jackie Pepnip? What is that? I just see a white cloud and then I don't know what the rest is. Brother, this is my friend who bro, what are what are these emotes or what? All right, guys. We need to um yeah, we need to have a conversation. Why are we spamming the chat with like people what anyways, um are guns normal in the US? I'm not sure. Never seen a gun in my life. But yeah. Anyways. So Coding Barra is asking, oh, shoot, I got an alert. Who, dude? What we gonna do today? Yo. Oh, yo, dude, what we gonna do today? So, today, my children, I was, yeah, I went to the theaters to watch Hades Sound yesterday with some friends, and now that thing is stuck in my mind. Mm, my children. Anyways, so today, people. All right, Kudubar? Sure. Maybe yours. Maybe other people have other opinions. Who knows? Um, so today, what we're going to do is what we mentioned yesterday. So we're going to start and embark ourselves in another project, right? Um, this project is going to be creating a blockchain from scratch in Rust. You have me here, a person that doesn't know anything about Rust. So this is gonna be fun. Also, I don't know anything about blockchains, so this is the best combination of the two. Like, I know the basics. I know, like, okay, what the intention is, etc. I don't know about the actual infrastructure, like how do you actually build one, what do you do with it, etc. Are you gonna start with Rust today? I don't think so. So that's sort of the second part of it. We first want to understand what's going on. So, okay. It depends. I'm gonna leave it as an it depends. What do we want to do first, right? Do we want to, or like, what would be the more ideal path, right? Learning about blockchains and reading the original Bitcoin white paper and then the other ones, like depending on which ones we decide to take a look at. Right. So reading about that and making sure we understand the concept of what we're building and understanding this new thing that I'm honestly not at all familiar with, which is the reason why we chose this project, right? Because it's a little bit unusual when it comes to the common projects in the sense that, like, usually we do a virtual memory pager, a thread library, right? A memory allocator. Let's write, I don't know, a graphics interface. So embarking on this project, which is like a blockchain, it's a little uncommon from the usual path, and that's why I like it. So you could decide and do that. It is what I had in mind. You could also decide to start with learning Rust. So either one works. Why? Well, because I mean, we're gonna have to do both of them at some point in time, right? Either we start with the white paper and then we learn Rust, or we learn Rust and then we start with the white papers. It depends on what the people want. Depends on what you guys want. It's also true that I probably will dedicate my time to learn Rust on my own, so that you guys are not like watching me try to code like a bunch of random stuff. Um, but yeah, it really depends. So let me know what you guys want. I think we discovered last time there was like a website that allowed us to do polls on Twitch. Um, poll Twitch. I forget where it is. Where is the thing? Hi, Penguin Operator. Welcome back. We cannot use the native polls because I'm not an affiliate, but there was this one website. I think I bookmarked it, right? Let's see. Zuigi, AFL. No, I think it didn't save it. This is tragic. Do we remember what that website was? Twitch whole website. Maybe we can find it like this. Chat.vote. There you go. Okay, we did find it. So we can submit straw poll. Yeah. We found this little website that allows us to do the polls, and so we can enter. Let's see. We type your questions here. So I don't know, like learn Rust, right? Then yeah, then white. Well, how do we do this? I guess we'll just do like this: Rust, white paper. White paper is together, right? White paper, white paper. Yeah. Okay. White paper or white paper, then Rust. So which one do we want? I'm honestly down for either one. Just know that whichever one you choose, the other one is gonna have to go after it. So yeah, we would add. Let's see. Oh, sorry. Let me delete this. So you can use /poll command. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I cannot use the /poll command because I'm not a Twitch affiliate. It's blocked behind being a Twitch affiliate, and I cannot become. I'm allowed by Twitch to become one. I do not want to become one, mainly because of like immigration issues. Because it's considered another form of income, and so it's really bad for the visa terms. Anyways, so first option, Rust, then the white paper, or the white paper, then Rust. Okay. So those are the two options. Once again, whichever one you choose, that one after, right? Like after we finish with that one, we're gonna have to go with the other one. So just have that in mind. Um, I guess let's see, we have 13 people, which is fine. So the way this works is once I press start voting, you're gonna type in the chat either one or two, and it's just gonna count your vote. Okay, it counts it once. So make sure that you, don't joke around. Actually select what you want, because then it's gonna be gone. Okay. So, what is white paper? Oh, okay. I was just talking about it. Maybe you came in a little after it. So, 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 so. What are these two options? What is Rust versus white paper? The thing is, we are going to build a blockchain from scratch in Rust. That's going to be the next project. But we don't know Rust, or I don't know Rust, and I don't know, how to build a blockchain. So these are two knowledge gaps that we need to narrow. Thus, the two options, right? Learn first Rust, then read the original Bitcoin white paper, and then the Solana white paper and the Monero white paper. Right? Like we'll take a look at which ones we want. Or first read the white papers and understand what we're building, and then learn Rust. Right? Those are the two options. So Rust first. So no, if you type one, it's gonna be Rust first, then white paper. If you type two, it's gonna be white paper first, then Rust. Right? You can see it here on the screen. Right? So that is going to be the vote. Okay? To all of the new viewers, attention. Do you first want us to learn Rust and then read the original Bitcoin white paper as well as other ones we decide to look at? Or we first read the white papers and then we look at Rust, right? So you're gonna hate Rust if you're used to manual memory management and hate leaving perf on the table. What do you mean hate leaving perf on the table? Like performance on the table. What do you mean leaving performance on the table? Isn't Rust supposed to be performant too? So I haven't clicked it yet. Don't start voting yet. Once I click it, we're gonna vote. Okay? Express your opinions, people, in 3, 2, 1. All right. Poll is live. Oh, we have a Coding Barra's vote. Ooh. All right, Sierra Niesel. Brother. Really funny today. Oh, the people. I see. Oh, damn. Okay. We're getting offset. So is it that way? So I imagine many of the Rust haters are like, nah, let's go with the white paper. Or many of the researchers, who knows? We may have some researchers in the audience. I think that's 5 votes. It's representing of, the amount of people that are usually active in the chat. I wonder if Andrew was to here. Ooh, Fee Carmichael, welcome. And W and Super WM and then a bunch of W's. Great. I hate both Rust and blockchain. It's hard to decide. Yeah, so just have in mind something. Our blockchain project is not going to be so the motivation behind it is not this thing where because I personally, right, if you ask me, blockchain to me sometimes sounds like AI, like not as in they are related in some sort of way. It just, if I hear the word blockchain, it from some random person, it like makes me go back a little bit, right? Or like, bro, the AI hype is like at its peak. We gotta create a startup for it. Like it's like repulsive, right? With AI, a similar thing happens with blockchain, especially with like many crypto bros that are just like, bro, trust me, this is the future, right? I think it's good when it's measured. we are going to approach blockchain not from that perspective or from the perspective of like, oh, we want to make money or whatever. We're gonna approach it from the perspective of the engineering that goes behind it. And it's the reason why I proposed the project in the first place. It reminds me of NFT. I don't know how. Yeah, exactly. So it's like there's many things that are very taboo that are related to the word blockchain. In the same, there are such things for the word AI, right? If I were to tell you, guys, let's create an AI from scratch, right? And all I do is just like import some package and then make a call to OpenAI's API, you're gonna be like, brother, what is this, right? It's like absolutely boring. So we're not gonna do like, oh, make your own blockchain and then just if you look up how to make my own blockchain, you'll see a bunch of videos that are especially on Python that are like creating your own blockchain on Python. And basically what it does is like pip installs some package, you call some methods on that package, and you have, a blockchain. We're not gonna do that, right? We want to create it from scratch. We want to actually understand the first papers that were there. How does the engineering work? In the same way, working in an AI startup is perhaps like, at least to me, it would be a very daunting feeling, right? Where they're like, bro, I swear, I swear, this is the future. You gotta use Claude all the time, right? That may not be exciting. What would be exciting would be, creating the actual concepts that are behind AI, right? Learning all of those concepts and saying, there are all of these vector spaces. If you perform these transformations, you end up having, linear regression, That is the interesting part. So we're going to have the same approach, but for the concept of blockchain, and and we'll take a look at that. It's another reason why we do this blockchain project is because it is rather different from the usual path. And what do I mean by that? So, you know, I personally have been doing projects that are like, a thread library. Then I created a virtual memory pager, then a network file system, and then the memory allocator, right? This is like the very common path towards, OS development or these low level things. Blockchain is just, it just doesn't fit in this path. It's something completely different. So we are all learning, right? Because I don't think anybody in the chat knows about like the inner workings of blockchain to the point where we can develop one. Because maybe, we've heard of it, sure, right? And maybe we know like there's something involving hashes somewhere and, blocks that are connected together by hashes, but like we don't know much about it. So we're all learning from the start, which is good. And the second thing is, it's a little bit of a breath of fresh air in the sense that we're not used to doing something like this, right? That's the second reason. Um, and so yeah, it provides just like a different perspective, and it preserves that low level feeling because of all the engineering that goes behind it. And I hope we'll be able to see. So all of that said, I'm gonna read the chat and see over here. So it reminds me of NFT. Yeah, have we read that? It makes sense to rapidly prototype the blockchain in C first, then extract info into white paper, then translate implementations to Rust. Could be an interesting one. Blockchain was the first type tech to waste GPU resources. After the bubble burst, they went to LLMs, and now GPUs are not made for gamers anymore. Yeah, Bonham Pavuk, I love you. Andrew, I knew it. I knew it. This is so funny because Andrew, I was talking about you. I was like, I said, Andrew has not voiced his opinion. Probably he's not here. I was like, but if Andrew was here, I would vote for the green one. Andrew tried to delay the apprenticeship of Rust as much as possible. I don't know. We'll see. I guess if we do white paper then Rust, it's good because we're gonna know the white paper contents, and then if we really hate Rust, we can just switch to something else. But I hope we don't hate Rust. Um, just because like it's like when people, when some president gets elected, maybe it's not the one you wanted, and there's people that are like, I hope their presidency is the worst. Brother, what are we talking about? Right? I hope the presidency is the best because we all get benefits from it, right? We all are happy if the presidency goes well. Um, so I wish we don't hate Rust because then it becomes another happy language that we can go for different things. We'll see whether or not that's the case, but I hope we don't end up hating it. you know. But anyways, it seems like I'm gonna stop the voting now because enough votes. Um, enough votes. Allegations are exaggerated. I don't dislike it as long as it's not C++. I'm fine, brother. What? What? Bro, Andrew throwing the rocks at us right now. do not, do not talk about C++ that way. No, this is democracy. Keep it on 24/7. So the thing is, like, we gotta decide which one to do, right? And like, I've allowed like 10 minutes for everyone to cast in their votes. Um, so we gotta start somewhere, right? I know, Conan Mara. I know. I know what you voted for. I'm sorry. The people have spoken. Let's stop the voting. Anyways, who said this was a democracy, buddy? Who said this was a democracy? Delusional tales you're telling over here in the chat. This was never a democracy. Anyways, yeah, no. It is. So we're gonna abide by the votes. And we're gonna have first the white papers and then Rust. So the white papers are gonna take us some time because we really want to understand what's going on. Okay, and it's gonna be, I'm not sure how easy it's going to be. So I've of course, tried to see if the white papers are available online. They are. I know that Bitcoin is a peer-to-peer electronic cash system, so it is available here, right? This one is a must, right? This one is a must. It's a must because this is like, maybe Bitcoin is not the best of them all in the sense of like the practical sense. I'm not sure. I do know that people have told me, oh, Bitcoin is really small, or whatever. But it is the origin story. Right? It's like the beginning of it. So we are, in a sense, like forced to read this white paper because it is the origin, right? Maybe not the origin, right? There were other systems before that were kind of similar, but Bitcoin is the one that ends up implementing the correct thing. So stop the count. Oh wait, what do you mean? We stopped the voting. We stopped the voting. Stop the count. Oh, you were responding to Code and Vera. Okay, I see. But yeah, and so yeah, right. We have this. And it is the origin. So yes or yes, we're going to start here, just because it's the origin story, and because it's gonna lay out many of the foundations of what we're gonna read next. This is gonna be, I warn you, a bit of a long stream. Okay, it's going to be very dense because we're just going to be reading papers, and probably the same for tomorrow and for some of the future streams. It's not going to be the entire thing because at some point in time we gotta start coding, but I do want to spend some time, at least a good amount of time, understanding and really seeing the engineering concepts and really grasping the mathematical concepts, everything, so that we honestly understand it, basically have this from head to toe registered in our cache. Okay, that's gonna be our approach. All right, so we start. This is like one of the Primogen videos. Have you seen it? Where he just like reads random articles. It's like, yeah. So we're just gonna do that, but for the Bitcoin white paper. So prepare, prepare for it. Stop the count. Stop the count. It's a used politics meme. You can ask Google about it. Oh wait, I'm not aware of it. Wait, stop the count. Stop the count meme. It's a viral internet joke that started from a political tweet and turned into a reaction template for anyone wanting to freeze a temporary winning moment. Donald Trump posted "Stop the count" on X on November 2020 during the close vote tallies of the U.S. presidential election when he held leads in key states before mailing ballots were fully processed. That's kind of funny. Stop the count. Stop the count. I see. Oh, so you just tweeted this. I see, I see, I see. Makes sense. That's interesting. But yeah, all right, people. So we're gonna begin the Bitcoin white paper. You're going to be hearing my sweet voice or, bitter voice, depending on what you prefer. But yeah. What were the counting? Okay, guys, please, let's not make this stream political. We all have opinions. But yeah. Go to cheeseburgers. Welcome back to the stream. So let's begin. We have the Bitcoin wallpaper. So Bitcoin. Ingrain this into your mind. Okay. A peer-to-peer electronic cash system. We're gonna be reading this for a while. Then we're gonna be asking questions of why are things the way they are. Because this is not gonna be completely obvious at the beginning. Okay. But we're eventually going to learn. If you want, put me in the background. I'm going to be trying to ask questions to myself because there's gonna be parts that I won't understand. I'm very sure about that. If you want to follow, you can follow. If not, put me in the background and you'll hear my voice here reading it, either sweet or bitter, depends on your preferences. But yeah. I'm just ignoring the fact that you're using Rust. La di da di da. Bro, we're learning from you, bro. Let's go. People, who is excited? Who is excited for the white paper? Me. I'm excited. Okay, let's go. So Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system by Satoshi Nakamoto at satoshin@gmx.com, www.bitcoin.org. Abstract. A purely peer-to-peer version of electronic cash would allow online payments to be sent directly from one party to another without going through a financial institution. Digital signatures provide part of the solution, but the main benefits are lost if a trusted third party is still required to prevent double spending. Okay. Oh, let's see. Oh, wow. Stephen LB. Hello. Welcome to the stream. Bug Lover 3441, Hobnob, of course. Yo. Allo, hola, hello. So, hello everyone. We are, as the title says, we finished with our memory allocator project yesterday, actually. It was very nice. We ended up beating Malloc in some of the benchmarks. We were sort of face to face, which is great. And now we're transitioning to this. So the next project is going to be, yeah. Thank you, Stephen. But yeah, the next project is now going to be creating a blockchain from scratch. One of my goals was to learn Rust, because many people in the audience have suggested it, as well as Zig. First, we're going to learn about Rust, then we're going to learn Zig. So the Rust project is this sort of creating a blockchain from scratch. We are not going to take an approach to blockchain as it's usual. If you look up on YouTube, how to create a blockchain. You're usually going to receive Python tutorials where you import a package, call some methods, and then you can say, oh, I have my own blockchain. We're going to do it literally from scratch. Right? And the reason we do it is not for hype or money of some sorts. We're just going to do it because the engineering concepts behind creating a blockchain are very interesting. So that's what we're doing. We're going to be reading this paper. So yeah, the opinions about Rust are very divided. Like even in our chatters before, they're really very divided. So yeah, for now, we are going to read the white papers, then we're going to learn Rust. Okay, so let's go. I'm going to go, straight through the white paper. So don't worry if I don't read the chat. I just want to, I may finish reading an entire paragraph and finishing an idea and then look at the chat. Okay? So let's begin again. Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system by Satoshi Nakamoto. Satoshin@gmx.com and www.bitcoin.org. Abstract. A purely peer-to-peer version of electronic cash would allow online payments to be sent directly from one party to another without going through a financial institution. Digital signatures provide part of the solution, but the main benefits are lost if a trusted third party is still required to prevent double spending. So, what does this mean? It seems like, okay, so we have a solution to the problem with digital signatures in the sense that how can you trust that the person you're talking to is the person that they're claiming to be? Well, digital signatures seem to solve that problem as far as I understand it here. So the main problem that Bitcoin is going to solve is preventing double spending. Double spending being I send you, perhaps using more money than I actually have, or sending a transaction to some person and then sending the same transaction but to a different person where I have now duplicated the amount of money I possess. Right? That makes sense. So double spending in the actual world is preventing, as Satoshi is saying, by making everything go through a single financial institution that is completely aware of all of the transactions and thus can detect whether somebody is intending double spending, right? Okay, so if you have an omniscient sort of being looking at the entire financial system, they're going to be able to tell whether or not somebody is trying to spend more money than they actually have, or sending one transaction to one person and the same transaction but to a different one, thus duplicating the amount of money they have, I assume. We propose a solution to the double spending problem. Using a peer-to-peer network. Peer-to-peer meaning, the usual, right? So computer to computer, sure. The network timestamps transactions by hashing them into an ongoing chain of hash-based proof of work, forming a record that cannot be changed without redoing the proof of work. The longest chain not only serves as proof of the sequence of our events witnessed, but proof that it came from the largest pool of CPU power. Okay, I think we're going to understand this later. As long as the majority of CPU power is controlled by nodes that are not cooperating to attack the network, they'll generate the longest chain and outpace attackers. The network itself requires minimal structure. Messages are broadcast on a best effort basis, and nodes can leave and rejoin the network at will, accepting the longest proof of work chain as proof of what happened while they were gone. Okay, seems like an interesting idea. We'll see exactly what that means. Introduction. Commerce on the internet has come to rely almost exclusively on financial institutions serving as trusted third parties to process electronic payments. While the system works well enough for most transactions, it still suffers from the inherent weaknesses of the trust-based model. Completely non-reversible transactions are not really possible, since financial institutions cannot avoid mediating disputes. The cost of mediation increases transaction costs, limiting the minimum practical transaction size and cutting off the possibility for small casual transactions. And there is a broader cost in the loss of ability to make non-reversible payments for non-reversible services. Okay, the cost of mediation, yes, increases transaction costs. So fees, etc. when it comes to transfers, sure. Limiting the minimum practical transaction size and cutting off the possibility for small casual transactions. Okay, and there is a broader cost in the loss of ability to make non-reversible payments for non-reversible services. Okay, so, Bitcoin also has been considered, as an upheaval against the financial system. Makes sense why you would want such a thing, the independence that comes with it, of not having a central financial institution. All of this makes sense, right? With the possibility of reversal, the need for trust spreads. So we attack the main problem of trust, right? Inherently in a current financial system, we're trusting the financial institutions and we're trusting that everything they do is correct and that they will always do the right thing. it is difficult to do such a thing, especially in a world that's ever expanding. So it seems like this is also, a pretty valid point. Right? A point I would agree with, where we say, okay, we cannot have the control in a single place, right? Despite there being regulations, etc. That implies a huge amount of trust that may sometimes be founded on something, may sometimes be unfounded. And so, a better way to prevent the problem altogether is to create a system that just doesn't depend on trust. Very interesting. Merchants must be wary of their customers, hassling them for more information that they would otherwise need. So there's also a need for privacy, right? It seems here. A certain percentage of fraud is accepted as unavoidable. These costs and payment uncertainties can be avoided in person by using physical currency, but no mechanism exists to make payments over a communications channel without a trusted party. Which it's a very interesting thing, right? I feel it's also, for example, when you say you go to Facebook Marketplace, right, or some sort of other thing, right? Happens a lot when you want to buy things that are really expensive. Say, I don't know, say rent an apartment, right? You don't really know the person on the other side, and you would prefer to have some sort of insurance on the fact that whatever you're acquiring is going to indeed be there for you. So usually some people have an approach where they say, I'm going to trust the other person. I'm personally one of those. I just go into Facebook Marketplace and I'm like, yeah, dude, I trust you. It's like, I'll pay you and then you'll give me the thing later. But it is very nice when you have some way of ensuring that the transaction will take place. And usually that's done through third parties, right? There's like platforms that are created around this idea of they act as a middleman between you and another person while that transaction is happening. Say, for example, renting a house, right? The agencies that rent houses, they don't really own the houses. They have contact with the people that do, and then you mediate through that third party. That seems to be more trustworthy than the person you would directly be dealing with. So it seems like most of our systems, and precisely, at least in this case, payments, which is what Bitcoin is focusing on, there doesn't seem to exist a mechanism where we can make payments over our communications channel without a trusted party. So, interesting. But we'll see what happens. What is needed is an electronic payment system based on cryptographic proof instead of trust. Good. Allowing any two willing parties to transact directly with each other without the need for a trusted third party. Transactions that are computationally impractical to reverse would protect sellers from fraud. Okay, good. And routine escrow mechanisms could easily be implemented to protect buyers. Okay, so it seems like non-reversible transactions. That's an interesting thing. So Satoshi is defending transactions that, if they are impractical to reverse, this would protect sellers from fraud. Nonetheless, you would have also, the side of the customers. What if I get scammed, right? That it's impossible for me to revert that transaction. And thus, I'm screwed. So there's also a bad side to what is being proposed here, right? If you have a computationally impractical to reverse transaction, then you don't have the concept of a refund, and you don't have the concept of, a bunch of stuff. You do have the concept of, in the case of the seller, right, prevent, refund frauds. And not only that, but like if you, as some sort of financial institution, were to simply wake up with the wrong foot, withdrawing those funds and maybe taking funds out of people's accounts, it's difficult that actually happens, but could happen. It's theoretical. So I guess we get that advantage. Yeah, everything is, a double-edged sword. Penguin operator. All right. Hope you'll be back soon. So, okay. The question is, how would you protect the buyers? You're saying routine escrow mechanisms. I'm sorry, I don't know what escrow means. Escrow meaning. This is a legal financial arrangement where a neutral third party temporarily holds money, assets, or documents like earnest money or property taxes until the specific conditions of a contract are met. So, Rudivan, does the non-reversibility not also protect the fraud guys? Yeah, that's kind of what I'm saying, right? Like, if you get scammed, non-reversibility would imply that, you cannot get your money back. There is no middleman. How are you, Alpha RMQ? I'm fine. But yeah, we're starting with a new project and we're reading the original Bitcoin white paper. So, fasten your seatbelt. Ayush says there is no middleman. So that is exactly what I'm sort of wondering, right? Because a routine escrow mechanism, right? But escrow means a legal and financial arrangement where a neutral third party temporarily holds money, assets, or documents like earnest money or property taxes until the specific conditions of a contract are met. So we still get some sort of reliance on a third party, right? As a proposal on how to protect the buyers. Which is interesting, unless we have a way to create an escrow mechanism that doesn't involve a third party that you need to trust. Because remember, we could involve a third party, right? There's nothing wrong with a third party. The wrong thing is we have to trust them. If we have to trust the third party, then it goes against these principles. But if somehow you can create some sort of mechanism where you don't have to trust the third party, we're good to go. So I'm not sure what the solution here would be. Yeah. So I guess we'll keep reading, but the part of the buyer is not very clear to me. If somebody has an idea on how the buyer is protected and how the fact that the buyer is not, sort of protected by the system itself, how does that not involve a third party, which would end up sort of changing things around? I was scanned once and bank did not reverse, so you can only trust yourself. Yeah, so it is sort of one of the principles behind Bitcoin, right? Right, like the financial institution now has control over what's going to happen, right? For now, they're only claiming things. Maybe the proofs come later. I don't know. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, let's keep reading, right? In this paper, we propose a solution to the double spending problem using a peer-to-peer distributed timestamp server to generate computational proof of the chronological order of transactions. The system is secure as long as honest nodes collectively control more CPU power than any cooperating group of attacker nodes. Pretty good, decent, right? Okay, so as long as the majority is good, the system will work. Okay. 2, transactions. Let's see. We define an electronic coin as a chain of digital signatures. Each owner transfers the coin to the next by digitally signing a hash of the previous transaction in the public key of the next owner and adding these to the end of the coin. A payee can verify the signatures to verify the chain of ownership. It seems like a very important phrase. Let me read the chat. Since the paper is only 9 pages, I doubt there are any serious proof of anything. We'll see. We'll see. We define an electronic coin as a chain of digital signatures. So this is our definition. Good. Each owner transfers the coin to the next by digitally signing a hash of the previous transaction in the public key of the next owner and adding these to the end of the coin. Okay. So makes sense. It's like every single transaction holds the chain. It's basically like a linked list of transactions, right? You can verify the provenance where this came from just by going through the chain. Sure, we're digitally signing a hash of the previous transaction and the public key of the next owner. Okay, so why do we do this, right? Why do we do this? Why are we signing a hash? So I assume we attach the public key of the next owner so that why? So the next owner will have their own private key. I assume they can then sign that. So what I am imagining right now, and I think we can enter the Scali draw, but on the web, which is, we need to delete this. Oh shoot. Okay. There you go. So assume, we have the coin, right? I'm just gonna represent it with a circle. And let's do it like this, right? We have the coin, right? And then we have this owner who wants to transfer the coin to this other person. So this would be A, this one would be B, and this one would be C. Right, so there's 3 people involved here. Now let's try to understand why we're doing what we're doing. So A transfers the coin to B, right? And it does so by attaching B's public key. So it attaches B's public key over here. So B's pub. And then it also attaches, the previous hash. So the previous hash. Right? Now, the question is why? I imagine the explanation would be, well, right, B's public key is here. B would be able to sign this sort of, conglomerate thing with their private key, and then gets transferred to C. C would be able to see that this is indeed B because its public key is there, and B signed it with their private key, so C knows exactly who this person is. Then they can take a look at the transaction that was before, because now they have the hash available, and they can continue this process going through the whole ownership chain. Am I understanding correctly? I think yes. Yeah, right? I think so. Okay. When B protects, or like when B signs this message with their private key, C, using their public key, would be able to know that it's B. Then it takes a look at the message. It sees that it indeed was intended for B, and then it takes a look at the previous hash, right? I guess the problem here becomes, what happens if, right, if B emits to C something different? What if B sends to C not this hash, but maybe a different hash, right? Maybe they send to them hash 2. And maybe B just forges a bunch of transactions, a bunch of hashes, and then C just, is fooled by the fact that this is the hash. So I imagine that this is the double spending problem, where B just, sends 2 different things that are actually not reality. Yeah, so one thing I want to have very clear is public and private keys, right? So let's see. We have the Diffie-Hellman key exchange, right? Which is the one that uses group theory in order to provide a way to exchange keys. So that understandable how they could know, how they could establish the communication channel. Now, we have... Let me read the chat. Let's see. So there are two parts. First is creating transactions. Everyone can create any transaction they want, but only the owner of a coin can sign the transaction. It seems like it. River, are you familiar with cryptography? I am familiar to the point of like very, very basic things. So I guess that's something that I also need to do, right? Being more familiar with it. So let me guys know if I am completely mistaken, because then we will have to read about cryptography, which would be ideal. I really want to understand this. So we have private and public keys, of course. Highly recommend joyofcryptography.com. Oh, this is the perfect resource. Let's take a look at what Andrew says. Contents. Okay. We have the one-time pad, yes. Rudiments of frugal security, secret sharing. So I imagine this is Diffie-Hellman. Oh no, that would be key exchange. Modern computational cryptography, pseudo-random generators, symmetric key encryption, hashing, key exchange, there we go, public key encryption, RSA, and digital signatures. Okay, so imagine this is the section that we want. And we would want to learn all about this. Let me guys know if that is not the case. But I think this section is the one that relates to what we're doing right now. Andrew, especially you, that you have taken a look at this. Secret sharing is about splitting information into parts so you can't recover information back unless you have all parts. Okay, I see. But yeah, Andrew, according to your experience, I think we want asymmetric key cryptography, right? I think. Anyways, while you do that, crypto message and ratcheting, authenticated key exchange, zero knowledge proofs, this one I know of. Then post-quantum cryptography, no idea about post-quantum cryptography. Yeah, asymmetric is what we need. Okay, yeah, for sure. So I think we can enter this. Key exchange is clear to me, right? Okay, they use a bunch of stuff. Okay, people. I think we're going to have to. We could get by not learning this, right? Like technically, because like I have a decent idea of how these things work, but not a complete picture. So technically we could get by, but it wouldn't be ideal, right? Because we really want to understand everything that's going on. So let's take a look at this resource that Andrew shared, and let's learn about cryptography from the beginning. No matter how long it takes, I know it's going to be boring. If you find it boring, just leave the stream and come back later. But we're going to do it the right way. We're going to learn and really understand what's going on, building block by block. Okay? And I suggest we start from the beginning. Let's do that. So there are some of these that are going to be familiar, at least to me, because I've seen some of these concepts. And I imagine that to some of you, it's going to be, even more things that you've already seen. But bear with me, okay? Let's start. We have unconditional cryptography, the one-time pad, and the provable security mindset. Every cryptography story begins with the same way. Alice wants to send a message to Bob. This would be an easy task if it weren't for Eve, who eavesdrops on their conversation. Really good. Defining the problem. So Alice has a message M called the plain text that she wants to send privately to Bob. She uses an encryption procedure, which we call ENC, to transform the plain text into a ciphertext, which she can send to Bob. When Bob receives C, he runs a decryption algorithm, DEC, to recover the original plain text. So Alice does something to the message. That weird thing that results is sent to Bob, and Bob disentangles whatever happens and recovers the original message, the usual way cryptography works. Security is all about what can and can't happen in the presence of an attacker, usually referred to as the adversary. For now, let's consider an eavesdropping adversary, traditionally called Eve, who observes the ciphertext during transit. So there's something interesting here, right? we're not allowing the eavesdropper to modify the message. We're only allowing them to see whatever we send in the ciphertext is. They're not allowed to modify it. So have that in mind. Bob must know something that Eve does not. Otherwise, Eve would be able to do everything Bob can do, including decrypt the ciphertext. Makes sense? Some information about the decryption process must be secret, known to Bob but not Eve. But what exactly should be kept secret? It's important to understand the difference between two similar sounding questions. What should be kept secret in a real world scenario? The more information you can keep from the adversary, the harder it is to attack. So if you have an opportunity to hide more information about the encryption decryption methods, why not take it? So it's just like, if you could just hide as much as you can, that'd be great, right? Because then it's going to be harder for the attacker. But it is not like you have to hide everything in the system, right? For example, if you're able to hide, I don't know, who the people sending the message are, that'd be great. But you don't really, what happens if the eavesdropper knows that whoever is sending it is Alice? That's not going to change much, right? If they still don't know the content of the message, they still don't know the content of the message. Should you hide the identity of Alice? Well, probably, right? It would be better, but it's not a must, right? It's not needed for the protocol to work. And I guess that's the next bullet point. What must be kept secret in order to prove a security guarantee? Well, that's going to be every piece of information that must be secret is an assumption, a limit on the real-world relevance of our encryption method. Given the choice, wouldn't you prefer to an encryption method whose security makes the fewest possible assumptions about what is kept secret from the adversary, right? Yeah, of course. I was just saying, like, should be kept secret. Well, maybe, you hide their identities. Maybe you hide the method of encryption, the method of decryption, etc., etc. But those are not necessary to hide. Would it be better to hide them? Sure. The must is like, we actually need to assume that this is hidden in order for the protocol to work. And of course, we will want to hide, or we would want to need to hide the least amount of things as possible. Perfect. Naive way of thinking about secrecy. For thousands of years, cryptography was based on the secrecy of the ENC and DEC algorithms themselves, so encoding and decoding algorithms themselves. There is nothing wrong in principle with making the encryption-decryption method secret, but it's not ideal to base all your security guarantees on the secrecy. If encryption-decryption algorithms are required to be secret, and 100 pairs of people want to send private messages, then they will need to invent 100 sufficiently different but equivalently secure encryption methods. This level of cleverness doesn't scale well. So, yeah, this makes sense, right? If you need the encryption and decryption algorithms to be unknown, to be secret for the process to work, then you could have A and B. A sends a message to B through that encryption method, and C sends a message to D through that encryption method. C and D know now what the encryption and decryption algorithms are, and so now they can eavesdrop on A and B. So it makes sense, right? If the algorithms themselves have to be secret, then you would have to create a pair, like a version of them for every single different thing that you want to do, or like different set of people. If encryption decryption algorithms are required to be secret, and the algorithms somehow fall into the adversary's hands, then it becomes necessary to redesign a new and sufficiently different method. It is difficult to keep algorithms secret and easier to keep data secret. If encryption decryption algorithms are required to be secret, how can we subject anyone's encryption method to scientific scrutiny? How can we develop a consensus about what makes for a good encryption method? Scientific consensus is an inherently public process. Pretty good arguments for why you wouldn't want the algorithms to be a part of the protocol in that they are required to be secret. Modern way of thinking about secrecy. These days, we partition the encryption process into secret and non-secret parts. The secret part is called the key. It is a piece of data that is provided as input to both the encryption and decryption algorithms. Ideally, the key is short, so it's easy to generate, store secretly, and replace if necessary. So the key is just whatever we need to maintain secret, no matter what that is, it seems. I mean, of course, it has to be data, right? But yeah. Okay, and it is the input to both the encryption and decryption algorithms. Great. The key is the only thing assumed to be secret. The encryption-decryption algorithms themselves do not need to be secret, and the security guarantees should apply even if the adversary knows these algorithms. So we only assume the key to be secret. For the rest of things, imagine they're public, and there's thousands of eyes taking a look at them. The 19th century cryptographer August Kirchhoffs, I hope I didn't mispronounce that, was the first to clearly articulate the idea that encryption methods should remain public. We still refer to the idea by his name. It's Kirchhoff's principle of 1883. Ooh, it's in French. Let's see. Can we read this in French? Do we have some French people in the audience? I'm not sure. If one had a true and equal value and no greed, real free trade, we would never need encryption. What a nice word that would be. Okay. But, yeah. Il faut qu'il n'exige pas les secrets et qu'il puisse sans inconvénient tomber entre les mains de l'ennemi. The encryption method must not require secrecy, and it should be able to fall into the enemy's hands without causing inconvenience. The modern interpretation is: design your system to be secure, even if the adversary has complete knowledge of all its algorithms, and so that all security properties stem ultimately from the secrecy of the key alone. Very important point. The key is the only thing that we assume to be secret, and it must be secret. Team Lucas, welcome. Remember, Kirchhoff's principle doesn't say that you must make the algorithms public. It says that the system should be secure even if the algorithms are public, right? So we have here, Andrew, if people knew all about what other people know recursively, we wouldn't have market speculations. That is true. Team Luca, what are we working on now? We're working on creating a blockchain from scratch in Rust, and we're learning cryptography. so yeah. Thank you, W. Thank you. So we have the one-time pad, if I remember correctly. Yeah. Okay, so let's see. Notation and review. Oh, let's go. This is math. Great. So the set of n-bit strings is written as this, right, which would make sense, right? All of the functions from the first n natural numbers into into 0 and 1. The XOR, exclusive OR, operation is written as this. The concatenation of strings x and y is written as this. See section A1 for our review. So I will assume that we know what these things are, right? These are just sets of n-bit strings. All of this makes sense. The XOR operation and the concatenation. One-time pad, I imagine it's going to take, advantage of the XOR property that something XORed with itself at 0, right? If I remember correctly. One-time pad, OTP, is the oldest and simplest encryption method that we'll encounter in this book. The keys, plain texts, and ciphertext in OPT are each n-bit strings. The value n can be any positive integer, and it can be known to the adversary. The encryption and decryption algorithms of OTP are as simple as it gets. Just XOR the plaintext or ciphertext with the key. We can write these algorithms formally, right? So just XOR the plaintext or ciphertext with the key. And then I imagine that later, if you know the key, then you just XOR again to cancel it out, and then you get the original message. One-time pad consists of the following two algorithms. So we have encryption just does the ciphertext, and it XORs the key with the original message, and it returns the ciphertext. The decryption just, XORs the key with the ciphertext, and then we get M. So in the end, if we were to expand this operation, we would be doing K, right? K XORed with K, XORed with M. K XORed with K is 0, and 0 XORed with M is M. So we end up recovering the message. The values K, M, M, C, and bit strings. Perfect. So example, encrypting the following 20-bit plaintext M under the 20-bit key K using OTP results in the ciphertext below. So our original message is this guy. We get some sort of key, and then we just XOR this, right? So we get C. And then to decrypt it, we simply XOR again, and we see that we get the original message. In order for OTP to be useful as a communication tool, the receiver should recover the intended plaintext when decrypting. So the claim is that OTP is correct, it presents correctness. For all positive N and all K, M, we have decryption of this, the encryption is equal to M. We have a proof. We can substitute the definitions of OTP, so we just do the proof, right? Decrypting K and then encrypting this. The encryption of this results in K XORed M. Decrypting results in K XORed whatever is the ciphertext, which is this guy. Associativity of XOR allows us to do this. Something XORed with itself is 0, and then 0 XORed with anything is the original thing. So that's the proof that it actually works. The key for OTP must be sampled from the uniform distribution, right? So it's sampled uniformly at random. More precisely, when the key is sampled uniformly, we can actually prove something about the security of OTP. If S is a set of M items, then the uniform distribution over S assigns probability 1 over M to each item in N, item X belonging to S, which I guess is like, I assume this is the strongest guarantee you can ever have, right? The one where across the space of all possible messages, each, like whatever you're seeing right now, has a probability of, 1 over M of E being each one of them. So it would mean you cannot tell what this message is because it might as well be any message. We write X and then this little arrow S, it's like the surjectivity arrow, but in the other direction, in pseudocode to mean that X is sampled from the uniform distribution over S. Perfect. So X is just some random guy, it's random, uniformly random over S, the set of all possible things. 1.2.5. In OTP, the key is sampled from the uniform distribution over this guy. So it's just saying you pick a random n-bit string, uniformly random, right? Each string is chosen with equal probability. We write the process of choosing an OTP key as this. So key takeaway, just pick a random n-bit string. That's what this is saying. Random as in uniformly random. Every string has the same probability of being picked. How to formalize an attack scenario. In cryptography, we prove things like, when you use this cryptographic algorithm in exactly the same way, and this way, and the adversary has these capabilities, then you can expect this particular guarantee to hold. We can reason formally about such things using an attack scenario, a precisely defined interaction between one or more victims and an adversary that specifies 1. The correct usage of the cryptographic algorithms for the victim, and 2. The precise capabilities of the adversary. In this section, we discuss how to formalize an attack scenario for OTP. Then in the next section, we will prove a security guarantee that holds in that scenario. The encryption algorithm for OTP, one-time pad, has 2 inputs and 1 output. It has 2 inputs and 1 output. The key and the plaintext. So you give me the key and the plaintext, and encryption will give you the ciphertext. One attack scenario assigns the victim and the adversary to different parts of this interface. The victim is responsible for choosing the key. The adversary is responsible for choosing the plaintext input. The adversary receives the ciphertext output. The attack scenario fully prescribes what the victim should do. In our OTP attack scenario, the victim is expected to sample the key uniformly at random and use each key to encrypt only a single ciphertext. Our security proof for OTP relies on the fact that the key is chosen in precisely this way. If a real-world application doesn't involve a uniformly sampled key, then the security proof may not apply, and its guarantee may not hold. Okay. This kind of mindset will be useful to understand guarantees of Bitcoin formally. Okay, I assume so, yeah. That would make sense, right? If we're talking about not trusting third parties. So this makes sense, right? The behavior, so not only are we relying on the key being secret, but on the key following a certain process of creation, which is still reasonable to assume, right? Because we know that the key is created by a trusted party. And as somebody, I don't remember who it was, I think it was Gouda Cheese, maybe? No, it was Coden Barra, if I remember correctly. You can only trust yourself. So you yourself know you are a trusted party, and the key is only coming from you. So you can trust the algorithm for the generation of the key. I guess it's one of the first things we can take a look at. No? The behavior of the adversary is arbitrary and unspecified. Assigning the adversary to part of the OTP raw interface is our way of saying that there are no assumptions on how this part of the interface is used. There are no restrictions on how the plaintext input to ENC is chosen, in the sense that the security proof does not assume anything about how it is chosen. Subject to some subtlety mentioned in section 1.6. Okay. There are no restrictions on what kinds of computations can be done on the ciphertext output. So basically, the victim or the person chooses the key, and then we allow the adversary to do whatever they want with the message they put in and the message we out, the ciphertext encryption outputs. We can express the attack scenario even more precisely if we focus exclusively on the adversary's view of the interaction. The adversary is an arbitrary program that can invoke the following subroutine. So say adversary chooses M, and then attack with M. The victim samples K, the victim encrypts it, and then the adversary sees C. Okay? So the adversary, it's basically equivalent to saying somebody that has access to the attack function or routine, right? Everything about the attack scenario is captured in the code of the single subroutine. By inspecting this subroutine, you can see that the calling program, adversary, can choose the input M and see the output C, but has no control over K since it is sampled inside the subroutine. This reflects the fact that the attack scenario fixes the victim's behavior. The adversary cannot influence it. Here are two more important things to keep in mind when interpreting the code of the attack scenario. Even though OTP's encryption algorithm is deterministic, this attack subroutine is randomized. Even though OTP's encryption algorithm is deterministic, which we know it's deterministic because it's just stored with the key, the attack subroutine is randomized. Calling it twice, even on the same input, may give different results. This is because the victim samples a fresh key for each encryption, making its overall behavior randomized. Pretty good. The variable K is privately scoped to the subroutine. The calling program cannot see K. It sees only the subroutine's explicit return value. Basically, the attacker doesn't see the key, but can do whatever they want. Yeah. Remember, the attack subroutine is not a description of the adversary's behavior, but rather the description of everything in the attack scenario except the adversary. The adversary is some unspecified algorithm, we don't know what it's going to do, that gets to call the subroutine on inputs of its choice and see the resulting output. When we prove a security guarantee in the next section, we'll prove what is and is impossible by calling this attack subroutine. You can interpret such a proof as saying, if I use OTP according to the attack scenario, for example, I sample keys uniformly and use each key to encrypt just one ciphertext, then no matter how the plain texts are chosen, and no matter how the ciphertext is subsequently used, I can enjoy a certain security guarantee. We will use subroutines of this kind to reason about all security properties throughout the rest of the book. So now we get the general mindset for understanding attack scenarios. Every security definition with every security definition in this book involves some kind of attack scenario. With practice, you will get more comfortable understanding them and interpreting their guarantees. The victim always controls the secret key material and is responsible for running the cryptographic algorithms as specified. Secret keys are privately scoped to the attack scenario subroutine, which reflects Kerckhoffs's principle that security stems from secrecy of the key. But in OTP, security stems from not just the secrecy of the key, but also the fact that a new key is sampled for each encryption. We might revise Kerckhoffs's principle slightly. So I imagine it's not only the secrecy of the key, but also the process generation of the key, anything related to the key, basically. Broader formulation of Kerckhoffs's principle. Design your system so that all security properties stem from the users correctly managing the secret keys. Okay. Correct key management means different things in different attack scenarios. To understand what it means for a particular cryptographic algorithm, we just need to consult the source code of the attack scenario subroutine, since that's where the victim's behavior is prescribed. As a user of cryptography, you can enjoy the resulting security guarantee as long as you ensure that the keys are being managed in precisely this way. Let's see. I read somewhere that during Cold War, Russian military communication could be decrypted because the Soviets reused some OTP. Oh no, rather no. Yeah, because I imagine that then you can XOR both messages, right? If you have two messages that use the same key, you just XOR them together. The key XOR is going to cancel out, and then you're left with a XOR of the two messages, which I guess it's still kind of something you cannot really decrypt, but maybe you get some information from it, and then the more messages you gather, the more information you get. We'll see. We'll see. We get Kisner's maxim. Cryptography is a tool for turning things into key management problems. That's a very good quote. Besides the secret key input, the other inputs and outputs of cryptographic algorithms are generally left at the mercy of the adversary, and they become the adversary's interface to the attack scenario. Letting the adversary choose an input is the worst case. Letting the adversary see an output is the worst case. As cryptographers, we strive to build things that are secure, even in the worst case. The no matter how principle. When an attack scenario allows the adversary to choose a value, we are saying that we want security to hold no matter how those values are chosen. When an attack scenario allows the adversary to see a value, we are saying that we want security to hold no matter how those values are used elsewhere. How to define and prove the security of OTP? So now that we have characterized an attack scenario as a subroutine, what do we do with it? You might be expecting us to formalize explicit goals for the adversary. For example, the adversary can't find plaintext, or the adversary can't recover the secret key. These bad outcomes are important to consider, but they are not how to formalize what it means to be secure. Instead, we will consider something to be secure if the adversary sees only random junk in the attack scenario. More precisely, our goal will be to prove that the adversary sees uniformly distributed values. The uniform distribution is the randomest junk there is. Applying this principle to our attack scenario for OTP, we formulate security as follows. So this makes sense, right? Secure, yeah, what it says here, right? Secure means the adversary sees a random thing. And by a random thing, it's not like it was something that was generated randomly, right? It's just that the attacker cannot distinguish this from random noise, right? Let's see. Claim 1.4.1, OTP security. For all positive integers n in all choices of plaintext, the output of the following subroutine is uniformly distributed. Right? Recall what it means for something to follow the uniform distribution. Every outcome is equally likely. In this case, the outcome is the n-bit return value of the attack subroutine. There are 2 to the n possible outcomes, so each one should happen with probability 1 over 2 to the n, regardless of the choice of n. Right? let's see what Andrew's message is. It's because attacker can influence messages in some ways. So we can just say attacker knows the original message and get even more powerful property. Yeah, that makes sense. There are 2 to the n possible outcomes, so each one should happen with probability 1 over 2 to the n, regardless of the choice of m. Notation and review. Probabilities are written as this: probability of an event. For a review of probabilities, see section 8.2. That's fine. Example 1.4.2, distribution of OTP ciphertexts. Before proving the claim in general that for all n and all m this holds, let's develop some intuition by looking closely at one concrete example. Let's consider n equals 2 and m equals 0, 1. We want to send this message to Bob. What happens when attack m equals 0, 1 is called? Well, K00 and each of these keys is chosen with the same probability of 1/4, right? If we take a look at the outputs look like 0, 1, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 0. This covers the entire possible output space of 2-bit strings, which means since the key can be chosen with a probability of 1/4, the probability of getting each of these outputs is also 1/4, right? There are 4 outputs possible, 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, and 1, 1, each with probability 1/4. Thus, the output is distributed uniformly in 0, 1, and 2. Great. There's nothing particularly special about m equals 0, 1 in this example. The output of attack m is uniformly distributed for any m, which we now prove. Proof. Fix arbitrary values mc and n bits, right? We're interested in the probability that the attack subroutine is going to return this specific ciphertext. The probability that calling attack with plaintext input m results in ciphertext output c. That event happens exactly when whatever c we chose is equal to the XOR ring between the key and the plaintext. Applying the algebraic properties of XOR, this condition is equivalent to saying that the key is equal to m XORed with c. In other words, there's only one choice of k, namely this one, that causes attack of m equals c to happen. Since k is chosen uniformly from the overall space of n-bit strings, the probability of choosing that one particular value is 1 over 2 to the n. In summary, for any m and c we choose, we have that the probability of the attack subroutine under this plaintext returning that exact ciphertext is 1 over 2 to the n. Thus, for any m, the output of attack m is uniformly distributed. This makes sense, right? So it's impossible for us to distinguish, what were the inputs to this in a sense, right? Like the attacker knows the inputs, etc., but it's uniformly distributed, just random noise from the perspective of the attacker, whatever's outputted. How to interpret a security proof. Even if you followed all the steps of this proof, you probably still have a lot of questions about what this proof means, right? We proved something about the output of some subroutine. What does any of this have to do with security? We designed the attack subroutine to formalize a specific realistic attack scenario. We proved something about the subroutine's output, which is what the adversary sees in the attack scenario. Why is it desirable to prove that the output is uniformly distributed? This is the theme throughout the book. Our security goal is to ensure that the adversary should see only random junk. In fact, the attack subroutine behaves exactly identically to the following. We just saw the proof for why. But this subroutine completely ignores n, and its output has literally nothing to do with n. Imagine Alice and Bob exchanging OTP ciphertexts. From the adversary's point of view, they might as well just exchange decoy values that were chosen uniformly, which have nothing to do with their intended plaintexts. The effect on the adversary would be the same. This adversary can't tell the difference between a world where Alice and Bob use OTP as intended and a world in which they exchange literally meaningless junk. What do you mean? The plaintext doesn't affect how the ciphertext is distributed. Bob is able to decrypt the ciphertext to recover the plaintext. These facts are not contradictory. contradictory. They simply involve different perspectives. From the adversary's perspective, which doesn't include the key, the ciphertext is uniformly distributed. From Bob's perspective, which includes both the ciphertext and the key, the ciphertext doesn't look uniformly distributed. So, yeah, let's see. Andrew says, what's interesting for public key cryptography, it is possible to distinguish. But you need a lot of computational power. Oh, of course, yeah. In this scenario, it is literally impossible no matter how powerful your computer is. Yes. Perfect observation from Andrew. Using the more technical terminology of probability, the random variables C and K are correlated. Each of them is uniformly distributed when taken in isolation. Yes, that is, the marginal distributions of C and K are uniform. The joint distribution of C and K together is not at all uniform. It is a different distribution for different choices of M. Right. This exercise explores Bob's perspective of this joint distribution. So let's read this again. Using the more technical term, the random variables C and K are correlated. Each of them is uniformly distributed when taken in isolation. Right. Yes, K determines what C is, but if we are to look at them in isolation, they look randomly sampled, uniformly randomly sampled. The marginal distributions of C and K are uniform. The joint distribution of C and K, right? Now, C depends on what the key is and what the message is. So when we consider them both together, we have a perspective of both. Of course, they're not going to be independently randomly sampled, right? C is going to depend on K. But at the same time, it depends on M also. So then it's a different distribution for different choices of M, apparently, from what I'm understanding. But yeah, this exercise explores Bob's perspective of this joint distribution. When I use OTP, do I have to let the adversary choose my plaintexts? No, of course. What does it mean for encryption to be secure against an adversary who already knows the plaintext? Putting the adversary in charge of plaintext is how our attack scenario reflects the worst case. If OTP is secure even when the adversary chooses the plaintext, then of course it is also secure in your real-world system, where the adversary might have less influence over the choice of plaintext. Why don't we just consider a scenario in which the adversary has no control over the plaintexts? Well, this kind of scenario would lead to security claims that aren't particularly interesting or useful. Instead of proving OTP is safe as long as its key is handled correctly, we could only prove OTP is safe as long as its key is handled correctly, and we're absolutely sure that no one else has had any influence over the choice of plaintexts. In the real world, we often encrypt things in response to outside stimuli, so the outside world almost always has some influence over what is being encrypted. I guess a good example with this would be when you send a message, say you want to send a message in a chat, right? You're not just sending random bits, right? You're sending, say, English words. That would be some sort of influence that you get on what the input is. So it is, in my, ignorant perspective, because we're just reading this text, the reason why we would want the attacker to also control the input, right? This is an example of how things, your message is not completely uniformly randomly sampled, right? It always has some influence. Maybe, maybe the attacker is able to influence you in some sort of way to make some words more likely than others. Who knows, right? So it is definitely a greater and better security guarantee. How's Kirchhoff's principle reflected in what we proved? Well, Kirchhoff's principle is about deriving security from the secrecy of the key alone. In a way of formalizing the attack scenarios, the secrecy of values is reflected in the scope. In the attack subroutine, the key is secret because the variable k exists in a private scope. It is not visible to the adversary, only the designated return value of attack is. Kirchhoff's principle is also about assuming that the adversary knows the details of the cryptographic algorithms. Knowing the source code of the attack subroutine doesn't really change the fact that its output is distributed uniformly. OTP consists of two algorithms, encryption and decryption, but the attack scenario only refers to encryption. Doesn't decryption have any bearing on security? This is an astute observation. Decryption has no bearing on this particular security property, but it is reasonable to also study other security properties. Chapter 9 explores a more demanding attack scenario involving both encryption and decryption. The English translation of OTP security is if the OTP key is chosen uniformly and independently for each encryption and kept secret from the adversary, then ciphertexts appear uniformly distributed no matter how the plaintexts are chosen. There are some limitations of security proofs. We'll see what they are. So it's already amazing that we can prove anything at all about security, but it's also important to maintain some humility and perspective. Cryptography cannot address every important security aspect of a real-world system. OTP doesn't attempt to address any of the following questions, even though they are all important to the problem of private communication. First, how can Alice and Bob obtain a secret key or known only to them? So like you're trying to establish a channel through which to communicate, right? Because, you want your messages between Alice and Bob to be secret. But then how did they each know the key in the first place? They would need to send some sort of message, some sort of something that allows them to know what the key is so that they can start the encryption protocol. So it's an interesting question, right? Maybe you say, oh, maybe they meet in person, they exchange the key, and then later when they get home, they start exchanging messages, right? Rudifen and meet in person. Yeah, exactly, right? So there may be many answers to this question. It's just something that OTP doesn't address. It just assumes you have a way to do this. How can they keep K secret? How can a computer sample from the uniform distribution? Which is another great question, right? We have pseudo-random generators, not really uniform, actually random generators. How can Alice ensure that C is sent reliably to Bob? Maybe some coding theory will be involved with this. How can Alice hide the fact that she's talking to Bob? How can Alice be sure that she's communicating with Bob and not an imposter? How can we, all of these questions? But these are not the main nitty-gritty of what this is trying to resolve. Should the government be allowed to obtain a warrant to read Alice and Bob's encrypted communications and so on, right? For now, we have addressed only the following much narrower question, which I hope you agree is still non-trivial. Assuming that Alice and Bob somehow share a uniformly sampled key known only to them, and they have the ability to exchange public messages, how can they communicate privately, right? A security proof is a guarantee that holds only within one specific attack scenario. The adversaries in our security proofs always play by the rules that we have defined, but real-world adversaries may behave in ways that are outside of the attack scenario. The proof tells us nothing about what happens in such a situation. I guess an example would be what we said before, right? We are assuming that Eve only eavesdrops. She doesn't modify the message or do something like that, right? More concretely, our simple OTP attack scenario contains many implicit assumptions about the adversary's behavior. The adversary cannot force the victim to reuse a key for more than one encryption. The adversary merely observes the ciphertext but does not tamper with it before it reaches Bob. The adversary cannot make the choice of M depend on K. The adversary learns absolutely nothing about the choice of K. The adversary, right? So there are all of these conditions we're assuming, right? The adversary cannot see how many watts the victim's CPU was consuming while it encrypted the plaintext, which, like, believe it or not, right, this seems like a silly thing, but it's actually true, right? Timed attacks in cybersecurity to guess a password are examples of where an attacker just uses these sort of lateral information to guess what's going on. So currently we're just, we're just assuming these things. If you use OTP in a real-world scenario that violates any of these assumptions, you do so at your own risk. Our simple security proof no longer applies. So OTP may or may not provide its expected security guarantee. To know for sure, you would need to formalize an updated attack scenario, making all of the adversary's capabilities explicit, and prove something about that new scenario. With a little practice, you'll get better at interpreting these formal attack scenarios and spotting their implicit assumptions. So what's so special about XOR? Right? The security proof for OTP certainly took advantage of some algebraic properties of XOR. What happens if we use a different operation to combine the key and plaintext? So there's an insecure OTP variant. Let's consider a variant of OTP where encryption uses bitwise AND. So I imagine ATP, just like biology, instead of XOR. Write A and B to denote the bitwise AND of strings A and B. The attack scenario against this OTP variant would be formalized like this. So imagine, right, you would be able to get some information with the AND, right? Because you're going to see ones wherever both of these things sort of coincide with each other. And the OR, if you see like, a 1, I guess you don't know where it's coming from. I guess the only one would be if you see a 0, right? If you see a 0, then you know. Actually, no. XOR doesn't allow you to know anything. And does allow you to say, oh, wait, the key and the message have a 1 over here, and both of them have a 1 here, and so on and so on and so on. So it seems like you get more information, but let's read. Does the subroutine still have uniformly distributed output? If you experiment with some example values, you'll soon realize that the answer is no. One of the easiest ways to demonstrate this fact is to consider the output of attack of 0n. Regardless of the choice of k, the result of k and 0n is always 0n. In other words, the probability that when you input into the attack subroutine the 0 string, you get the 0 string back is 1. And this choice of input, the subroutine always outputs 0. Its output distribution is not uniform on 0, 1. In case this doesn't feel like an attack to you, we can illustrate the problem more concretely. Plaintext 0 is always encrypted to ciphertext 0. So if you observe any non-zero ciphertext, you can conclude that the plaintext could not have been 0. You learned something about the plaintext that you did not know before you saw the ciphertext. So the set of integers, so we have some notation, right? The set of integers modulo n is written as Zn. Notation is this, right? A is equivalent modulo n to b. The notation a percentage n refers to the remainder after dividing a by n. For a review of modular arithmetic, see this section. So we're fine with it. An OTP variant that uses modular addition. Now consider a variant of OTP where keys, plaintext, and ciphertexts are integers mod n, and encryption uses addition mod n instead of XOR. The attack scenario against this OTP variant would be formalized like this. So we get the attack, we sample some random value in the, z mod nz. Then we grab, well, it's not z mod nz, right? It would just be the first numbers of z, but yeah. Well, this is z mod nz, yeah. Anyways. C would be equal to k plus m, and that modulo n. This subroutine's input and output are elements of z mod n, not this guy. So we can ask whether the output is uniformly distributed over z mod n. I encourage you to try some concrete values of m and calculate the resulting output probabilities. This subroutine does indeed have uniformly distributed output, and we can prove it by following almost the same steps as the proof of this claim. In that proof, we showed that there is a unique key that causes the event this to happen. We could solve for that key as this guy. In this OTP variant, there's also a unique key that causes the analogous event, but we solve for it now as this. So k is equal to c minus m modulo n. Since you can have this, right, we expand this by adding 0 in a sense. Oh, well, not adding 0, right? Just substituting the value of c. That modulo n. Modulo just distributes as usual, so we get that this is k mod n. But remember that the k was sampled already from z mod n, so this is just not going to affect it, right? Where the last step follows from the fact that k already belongs in z mod n. So XOR is not the only operation that can be used for a secure variant of OTP. However, XOR is fast, right? Native operation in computer hardware, and it's also convenient, and it also conveniently causes encryption and decryption to be identical algorithms. So we just choose XOR because it's a little bit simpler, but it's not the only one. We get some exercises. I think so. So let's do this, right? You guys should visit this URL, which Andrew very heavily and very kindly provided, https://joyofcryptography.com/OTP, which I'm going to send again in the chat, which I'm not sure why. I'm not sure why it's not letting me select the text. Give me a second. Firefox, why are we not selecting the text? paste. Okay. This thing, right? Perfect. Mm. Ah, let me read the chat. So, side channels are fun. Yeah. And let me see. So, medium person, public key. Yeah, exactly. That's also interesting. Key must be as long as the message for OTP. So if you want to send 1 gigabyte file, you will need a 1 gigabyte key. Smartest 42. 2 questions. Why did you decide to delve into blockchain shenanigans, and why did you pick Rust this time? Oh, so blockchain shenanigans, just because it has a lot of things related to engineering, and like the engineering of a blockchain is very interesting. And in fact, we're seeing it here with cryptography. And I picked Rust because we wanted to learn Rust. But yeah, if the Bitcoin attack outside of attack scenario would be scamming. Okay, side channels are fun, and you can try solving the first one in Rust. That is a good idea, right? Because then we can do like both things, I suppose. We learn Rust and we do this. I'm not sure, but I think that's a good idea, right? The only problem is that now we would have to go and set up Rust and like install everything because I don't have it installed at all. What is this first exercise? The OTP encryption of plaintext Mario when converted from ASCII to binary in the standard way. For example, on the key K is this. Okay. What is the one-time pad encryption of Luigi under the same key? Damn. Well, I guess this one's pretty simple, right? Yeah. We just grab Mario, XOR it with whatever this thing is, grab the result and XOR it with Luigi. Okay, that's interesting. So yeah, we can do the exercises. Like each of you guys should try the exercises on your own in your free time. That's definitely something I will do, right? But yeah, and then we need to go to the next chapter. But no, it's pretty interesting. Thank you, Andrew. I think Andrew provided, if anything, one of the best resources that he could have. So everybody thank Andrew. Andrew the God. Yeah. So we have a bunch of exercises. Yeah, we need to try them here and now. Let's read the chapter notes. So Alice and Bob made their first appearance as cryptographic protagonists in the seminal 1978 RSA. Oh, interesting. So Alice and Bob were not a thing before RSA? I imagine they were, right? But not the subjects of cryptography, the standard subjects of cryptography. Interesting. Rivest, Shamir, and Adelman. They, Alice and Bob, have become obligatory rhetorical devices in cryptography research papers ever since. According to tradition, Alice's preferred pronouns are she, her, and Bob's are he, him, conveniently allowing us to refer to them unambiguously using gendered English pronouns. Eve, she, her, the eavesdropper, made her first appearance in the 1988 paper of Bennett, Brassard, and Robert. Interesting. August Kerckhoffs published his cryptographic design guidelines, La cryptographie militaire, in 1883. He described 6 design principles, the second of which is now commonly called Kerckhoffs' principle. A biography of Kerckhoffs can be found in here. One-time pad is also known as Vernam's cipher, after Gilbert Vernon, a telegraph engineer who patented the method in 1919. However, there is evidence that OTP was independently invented by Frank Miller in 1882. What I'm calling Kistner's maxim is from a keynote presentation in the 2018 IACA Crypto Conference by Leah Kistner, who at the time was lead of privacy technology at Google. The video can be found here. Okay. Exercise 1.4 modifies OTP so that a plain text never encrypts to itself. This is Enigma. Yeah, the German Enigma machine used in World War II encrypted text 1 character at a time, but would never encrypt a character to itself. This is one of the flaws in Enigma that allowed allies to break it. The special six-sided dice from exercise this are called Sicherman dice, after they discovered George Sicherman. I'm not sure. We'll have to take a look at it. What does it say? Alice rolls two standard six-sided dice and adds their values. Bob has two weird six-sided dice. One with sides label 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, and the other with sides label 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8. He rolls both and adds their values. Is there any difference in how their sums are distributed? This question is equivalent to asking whether the following two subroutines induce the same output distribution. That's interesting. This seems like a rather, probability question. Yeah, the notation this means that the outcomes 1 and 4 happen each with probability 1/6, but the outcomes 2 and 3 happen each with probability 2/6. Okay. I mean, I guess you can just go through each possible value and calculate the probability that you get that, i.e. how many pairs, can actually compute this value. So an example is 12, right? There's only one way to create 12 with Alice's routine, 6 and 6, and only one way with Bob's routine. So that'd be great. 11. There's only, let's see, there's only one way to do it. One or two ways, I guess, with Alice, right? First one 5, second 6, first one 6, second one 5. And with Bob, I imagine it's the same, right? Ached 3 and then ached 3. And then we can just try all of them and end up concluding, yes, they are exactly the same. Whether or not there is a faster method, it's a little different. Oh, yeah, I think we can just compute all of that and then we'll be fine. Yeah. I want to see 1.4, which is the one they mentioned about Enigma. Alice uses OTP and notices that when her key is the all zero string, her plaintext is sent in the clear as this. To avoid this problem, she decides to exclude the all zeros key. Now the set of possible keys is this, the set of all n-bit strings except 0n. The key is now chosen uniformly from the set of 2 to the n minus 1 possibilities. Update the formal attack scenario to reflect this change. Does the adversary still see a ciphertext that is uniformly distributed over 0, 1? Justify your answer. This one's interesting. So does, the adversary still see a ciphertext that's uniformly distributed over this? Justify your answer. I mean, the answer would still be no, right? They don't see it uniformly distributed anymore. Let's think about why. Because, I mean, for a given message you choose, right? XORing generates a bijection, right? Which means that if you restrain one of the inputs, that is, you get rid of one of the keys, you know that there's going to be one output, one ciphertext that's unreachable, just because you don't have the input that generates it. So it's of course not going to be distributed in 2 to the n. Yeah, right? I feel that's a decent enough answer to why it's not uniformly distributed. Now, how could an attacker exploit that is, a little bit of a of a different thing. If Alice sends the same message over and over and over and over, maybe like in that case, the attacker would be able to deduce by just sort of graphing the frequencies at which each output occurs. They would be able to notice that specific one that is never produced, which is not what the question's asking, but I guess it's the way to exploit it. So yeah, okay, this is interesting. Do it in your free time. And we'll continue with chapter 2. Once again, these first streams, like the next this week, probably. Although, well, I have my intern project, so it's very likely that we won't have many streams this week. Unfortunately, probably next week is when we're actually going to start with the actual constant streams every day. These are just going to be reading, right? Reading and understanding and learning a lot of stuff. So yeah. All right. Let's prepare for the next chapter. If you run attack until you get to the minus one different values, the remaining value will be equal to the original message. Yeah, exactly. You can just continue iterating, right? You plot the frequencies, and then at some point in time, once you have them all, you'll see the one that has no entry, and thus you'll be able to deduce that's the original message. But yeah, that's what I mentioned previously. Yeah. All right. Chapter 2. Attack scenarios as libraries is 2.1. And the name of the chapter is Rudiments of Provable Security. So what is rudiments? Rudiments meaning the basic principles, fundamental skills, or early undeveloped forms of a subject. Okay. Let's see. Attack scenarios as libraries. In the previous chapter, we showed how to formalize an attack scenario in terms of an adversary calling a special subroutine. Later in this book, we will encounter attack scenarios that are not easy to describe with just a single subroutine. In some attack scenarios, the victim can perform several different kinds of actions. For example, the adversary may compel the victim to encrypt one thing, then decrypt another. It is convenient to model fundamentally different actions as separate subroutines. Many attack scenarios feature stateful victims. For example, a victim holds a long-term key that it uses to encrypt many plaintexts. We need a way to describe persistent values that are reused across different subroutine calls. Instead of using a single subroutine, we can formalize attack scenarios as libraries. Definition. A library is simply a collection of subroutines. We specify libraries as concrete pseudocode, and we have some important conventions about the meaning of that code. All variables are private to their own library's scope and cannot be accessed by the calling program. All variables are global to the library and accessible to all subroutines in the same library. Okay, yeah. Lines of code outside of any subroutine, always written at the top of the library, are executed at the beginning of time. Usually these lines initialize global variables. So you read a lot. I actually, I don't read. To be I don't read a lot, to be honest. Like reading at least books and stuff like that, it's like something I don't really find that entertaining. I prefer to watch like a video to listen to something, but I'm not very good when it comes to reading. But when the thing that we're reading is interesting, it's very easy to just continue reading. At least I like reading it. But we're going to read a lot because we need to understand a lot and we need to learn a lot of things. So, which is, one of the main reasons why we chose this project. But yeah, so let's see. But yeah, no, to answer your question, I haven't really read a recreational book, and I don't like to read, say, novels or science fiction. I remember when I was in school, I think like every single book they assigned me for a class, I don't think I ever finished reading them. I would just go to the exam, like just deducing what happened in the story, or I would watch some like Draw My Life video of the book and then just go with that knowledge, which is, it's a little interesting, right? But there books are very interesting. Right? It's just that maybe I don't find it very entertaining when it comes to like science fiction or romance or action. I like to read texts that are argumentative, right? If you present me some text, there's like some sort of argument, I would love reading it, right? Or something like this. This is perfect, for example, right? I'm trying to read 3 books for like a year already. When everyone knows what everyone knows, Design of Everyday Things, and now this book as well. Yeah, pretty good. Coding Barat, programming books or documentations. Personally, I like it. Yeah, pretty good. Excellent. I personally don't like. I cannot read a programming book like the ones that describe. I had this huge book, this thick, that was like by Oracle, and it was the entire documentation of the Java language. I could not, like, for the life of me, I would open a page and I'll be like, me, 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 me. But yeah, it's the. I remember having the book. It's really thick. It was a gift that somebody gave me. Um, and I really tried reading it. It was just impossible. I cannot learn programming through books. Like, impossible for me. I know what official Rust learning resource is known as the Rust book. I know, I know, I know, I know. But like, right, in the same way, I cannot just watch a tutorial for coding, like just exclusively do that. The I like to just have the editor on a side and then actually write down things and try it out and try to create a program. Seems like at least it works for me that way. I'm very bad with the reading, so yeah. So let's continue here with this. So we have certain types of variables, right? Are initialized to a default value so that we don't need to explicitly write their initialization. Boolean variables are initialized to false, int size 0. This is an empty set. And then this is initialized to the empty map. Sure. Okay. Mwah. The following library has 2 subroutines and 1 global variable d. So we have d, blah, 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 blah. Guess accepts a guess, and then it returns whether or not they're equal. And reroll just grabs d, right? This library models in attack scenario in which a victim holds a 6-sided die. The first line of the library, outside of any subroutine, represents what the victim does at the beginning of time. It rolls the die. Both subroutines access a global variable d. Those 2 subroutines represent actions that the adversary can cause at any time. The adversary can make a guess about the current value of the die and learn whether the guess was correct. The adversary can also instruct the victim to privately re-roll the die, learning nothing about the result of that roll. The adversary plays the role of a calling program that invokes the subroutines of the library. We need a way to write the act of combining a calling program with the library and executing the resulting combined program. This definition, linking calling programs and libraries. Suppose a program A makes calls to subroutines in a library L. Then we write A diamond L to denote the result of linking A to L in the obvious way, resulting in a combined, self-contained program. We write A diamond L implies B to denote the event that the combined program A diamond L outputs the value B. If A or L are randomized, then the output of A is a random variable with an associated probability distribution, right? Then the output of A is a random variable with an associated probability distribution. Yes, we usually care about calling programs that return a Boolean output. We define this thing to be the probability, to be the output probability of A linked to L. Perfect. Let me see. I think Rust by example book will be better if you already know how to program in all the languages. That'd be great. Do you know any book for C? I am currently reading KN King Modern Approach. So Andrew may have some recommendations. We'll see. Also have the Bible KNR book. Yo, that's legendary. The KNR book is a good start. LOL. I don't. Oh no, Andrew. Okay, let's see some examples. Here's some alpha probabilities. Below is an example calling program A linked to the dice rolling library L from example 2.1.2. So we link them together and A is then able to call those functions. This just works as a usual program, right? The combined program outputs true if the victim rolls a 6 in either of its first 2 rolls, right? One way to calculate the resulting alpha probability is the following. The probability that the linked program returns true is 1 minus the probability that it returns false. The probability that it returns false is it gets wrong here and it gets wrong here, so it's the multiplication of both. The probability, 1 minus the probability that your first roll wasn't 6, which is 5 over 6, times 5 over 6, it's 1 minus 25 over 36. So in total, 11 over 36 is the probability that the program returns true, right? When we reason about security properties, we write a lot about different libraries on the page. But remember, security is about what happens when an adversary is allowed to call the library subroutines. We just can't write the adversary on the page, because adversaries are always unspecified and arbitrary. Whenever you see the code of a library, always remember to picture an adversary in the role of a calling program. It is standard in cryptography to define security in terms of adversaries interacting with libraries that play the role of the victims, but the idea of calling them libraries is unique to this book. Elsewhere, you might see libraries called security games or security experiments. Interchangeable libraries. In the previous chapter, we discussed the security of OTP by showing that the following two subroutines have the same behavior. On every input, they generate the same output distribution. Let's extend this idea from simple subroutines to more complicated libraries. What does it mean for two libraries to produce the same output behavior, especially if they have several subroutines or persistent static variables? We will say that two libraries L1 and L2 have the same behavior if they induce the same output probability in every calling program. Pretty good definition, right? Suppose the libraries L1 and L2 have the same interface, identically named subroutines with identical argument types and return types. We say that L1 and L2, identically named subroutines with identical argument types and return types. That is interesting. Okay, yeah, I guess. I guess there would be no way to formalize it if one of them has an extra subroutine. Yeah, that makes sense. We say that L1 and L2 are interchangeable, and we write this equivalence, right? If no calling program behaves differently when linked to either one of these two libraries. More formally, L1 is equivalent to L2 if, for every calling program A with Boolean output, then the probability that it returns true is equal to the probability that this guy returns true, right? Which is interesting. Okay, now I guess this is a more general notion, right? Because if the programs were deterministic and etc., then we would just get, the probability to be 1 or 0. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. It might help to think of a calling program as a distinguisher, whose goal is to determine whether it is linked to L1 or to L2. The two libraries are interchangeable if no distinguisher can succeed, not even with the smallest change in its output probability. It is important to understand exactly what information can pass between A and L in the combined program A diamond L. In short, the only thing that the calling program can learn about the library's operation is the return value of its subroutines. In particular, the calling program cannot access the variables inside the library. This is what we mean when we say that the library's variables are properly scoped. Yes, we know this. The calling program cannot measure how long the library takes to compute the response. It cannot detect cache hits or misses that might indicate whether the library accesses a certain region of memory. It cannot, remember the point of all of this is to formally prove things about security. Our calling programs and libraries are clean mathematical abstractions. You can use the methods in this book to prove security guarantees that involve an adversary who can observe response times and of CPU cache behaviors and so on. You simply need to make these channels of information explicit in your libraries. They don't exist automatically like they do when programs are running together on the same physical computer. It's also important to understand that definition 2.1 involves two completely independent program executions. We consider the output probability of A linked to L1, then separately consider the output probability of the same A linked to L2. We never consider a scenario in which A is linked to both libraries at once, or when one library is swapped for the other during an ongoing execution of A. So it makes sense. Restating OTP security using libraries. I feel like, right, we sort of understand what's going on. We know how it would be performed here. So I'm going to skip this section a little bit because it puts absolutely no restriction on the calling program. The two libraries must induce identical output probabilities on all calling programs, even those whose running even those whose running time is astronomical. Only in later chapters will we care about the running time of calling programs. Right? There are ways to be interchangeable, right? You're probably familiar with many ways that two different programs can have the same behavior. Here are a few examples. Two libraries are interchangeable if their only difference happens in unreachable lines of code, right? So foo, right? Yeah, if this thing has returned this, sure. Their only difference is the value they assign to a variable that is never actually used. Their only difference is that one library unrolls a loop that occurs in the other library. Okay, yeah. Their only difference is that one library inlines a subroutine code that occurs in the other library, and so on, right? Like I can imagine, hopefully it's quite clear why each of these pairs of libraries have the same behavior. Each example is extremely simple, yeah. Most syntax scenarios involve randomized libraries, and these can be interchangeable in more interesting ways. So concatenating two strings, which were sampled independently and uniformly, has the same effect as sampling from the uniform distribution over longer strings. Would make sense. How do we prove that though? It doesn't matter when a value is sampled, as long as it is sampled before its first use. In the left library below, S is sampled eagerly at the beginning of time. In the right library, S is sampled lazily at the last possible instance before it is used. Makes sense. For example, uniformly, I mean, I guess, all of these examples are pretty clear to us. Kerckhoffs's principle. So let's see. Hyperacy, hello, welcome. Why are you coding it in Rust? Because we want to learn Rust. that is the main reason. I don't know any Rust, and so we want to learn. Yeah. So we have that. It says remember. But Rust is useless. Brother, don't say that. We don't know it yet. And we don't know if that's the case. Why not Python? Did you just imply that Python is a better option? Rah! Brother, no. Brother. Sister. No. Brother. Why Streifen code? Oh, why Streifen code? I'm not sure what it... Kick W. Let's go. Hello. Based. Because he likes to answer the question, why Rust every 5 minutes? That's true. It won't help you to directly conclude this. It's not us versus them. Anyway. I'm not saying it's better, but you have more resources, especially for a blockchain. Oh yeah, but we're trying to build the blockchain like from literal scratch. Like we don't want any packages, nothing. We don't want anything. So yeah. Coding a blockchain from scratch implies that you don't need resources. Yeah. Yeah, then why not C? Yeah, we could the C. We've been coding in C, but one of our goals is to learn Rust. So then I'm just using Rust. Right? That's like the main reason. Let's see. Okay, and currently we're actually not coding, right? We're not gonna be coding for some time, as Andrew mentioned. We are learning cryptography for job. Zig will be much easier option to pick up after C than Rust. Yeah, I agree, right? But we want to learn Rust. Is the thing. Like the reason we do this, I feel like I've explained it. Like we want to learn Rust, so we're just finding a project with which to learn Rust. Could there be other languages we could use? Yes, as usual. But it's like, yeah. Let me introduce you to D. This language that's not common Lisp. Okay. Anyways. You're not gonna mix up synthesis if you learn a new language? I probably will. I hate tech tribalism. Starting in 2021 is a much better language overall, to be honest. Zig versus Rust. I'm not sure. We'll see. Right? Only one way to know. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba-bum. 1 second. Somebody's called. Wait, think I'll answer a little later. Anyways, it says Kerckhoffs's principle. How is Kerckhoffs's principle reflected in the idea of interchangeability? Two libraries must induce the same output probability in all calling programs. Even calling programs to source code depends arbitrarily on the source code of the libraries. In plain language, the calling program can know the source code of the two libraries that it tries to distinguish. Ooh. What? Two libraries must induce the same output probability in all calling programs. Even calling programs whose source code depends arbitrarily on the source code of the libraries. In plain language, the calling program can know the source code of the two libraries that it tries to distinguish. I feel this is poorly phrased. I'm not sure if you guys agree, but describing it as no is pretty bad. Oh, well, I guess not, right? It's just a little bit more difficult to interpret. It means you can know the source code of both libraries before starting. While you're executing, you won't know the source code of the library that is running. You do know the source code of both, though, right? So yeah, remember, even if its source code is public, a library can still have secrets. Knowing that the library executes the statement this doesn't help you know the specific value of k that was chosen at runtime. That is true. New section, so let's read the chat. And it's a much better language overall, to be honest. Sup, Penguin? Bingo! Alright, Hyperacy says, what are you going to do with Rust once you learned it? I mean, I guess I can apply the same question to any other language, right? What am I going to do to Zig once I learn it? I don't know. What am I going to do with C++ once I learn, and so on? It's not a special question to Rust, and I don't have a clear direction, to be honest. It's just good to know a language, especially if it offers new things, a different model. In this case, the barrier check of Rust. Interesting to learn what it is. Probably rewrite everything into it like Rust fellas do. They told us Java and Kotlin, and I never used it. Yeah, Java, I don't like Java, neither Kotlin. Literally me when I learned Rust, brother. With C, you can get many jobs. Yeah, but we know C, right? So, once again, this is just to learn Rust. Okay, I'm gonna stop responding to the comments related to this, because, it's pretty clear what we're doing, I hope. How to distinguish two libraries. Okay, I feel like I'm not sure if, because there is a lot of things to read, I agree, but it feels like some of these concepts are fairly intuitive, right? The problem is the following, right? Do it once, do it forever. If we end on skipping sections, then we're gonna get lost at some point in time, and then it's gonna be like, oh wait, what does this mean? Not only that, but we're gonna pick it up as a habit. And I'm not sure how much I want that to be the case. I do have to say, most of these things don't really apply to Bitcoin, to what we're doing directly. The ones that actually that are going to be in use are going to be these guys over here. Of course, there's going to be right. All of these guys are also going to be used. But some of the sections, say for example, pseudo-random functions, pseudo-random permutations are not going to be as useful for us. Hashing, of course, will apply, yes, and it's correct. So I'm trying to decide something, right? Because reading the entire thing in the streams will take us a very long time, a week. a week maybe. And so I'm trying to decide something. Maybe you guys can help me, or maybe Andrew, in your experience. Are we finally still reading, you know, chapter by chapter, which I think is ideal? Notice the word ideal. Or do we want to pick the chapters that are useful to what we're going to do and then proceed? Right? Those chapters are made. You can try answer questions and exercises. If you can probably just skim the chapter quickly. Interesting. That is a good way to measure it. Okay. Let's try that out with chapter 2, which seems to be, libraries, and we have abstract cryptographic primitives. What else? Modular. Wait. There you go. Okay, modular cryptographic instructions. Real or random versus left. Okay, let's see what this is. Which you can use to build more complicated things in a modular way. We can use the security. Let's see the exercises. Let's see exercise 1. Show that the following 2 libraries are not interchangeable. Okay, sample SHA-256. Yeah. Maybe Python is one of the best languages to land a Java's fresher. What do you think, Sharif? Let's see. I'm not sure, right? I'm not sure. It could be, right? I know there are many positions, especially that are not like coding specialized, that require Python. In the era of AI, it probably is. But yeah. TypeScript and PHP will probably land your job fast, but you won't like it. Do you have a British accent? Why the question mark? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I do when I read things, which is very strange. If I'm talking about programming, it's very likely it comes out. If I'm talking casually, it's a little bit more American. But yeah. How do we prove that these things are not interchangeable? So let's think. We sample X randomly from Zmod 10, and then we return X. And then we sample X randomly from Zmod 10. Let's see. In the right, we multiply by 2 and take the modulo by 10. So if we take the remainder by 10, since 10 is an even number and this guy is an even number, it means that whatever we get as a result is always going to be an even number minus an even number, which ends up also being an even number. The one on the right returns an even number always, while the one on the left does not. Right? So, makes sense. Show that the following 2 libraries are not interchangeable. Note that the variable r in L1 is static/persistent and is changed in each call to foo. Okay, that feels this one's relatively clear, question mark. Let's see. On the left, we create the static variable, right? We first sample randomly from it, and then we can just create a program where we input foo of 0 3 times. Then you would get the same R, so the same output. And then you can imagine, right, L2, the same program, we just have a different probability for that exact output. So then they're not interchangeable. Give a convincing justification that this guy is equal to 1 over 2 to the n in example 2.3.3. Let's see. One useful strategy is to start with a skeleton adversary with many details missing. So we have otp.encode. Okay, that's C2, right? We haven't decided yet which MI values to use as inputs to the otp.enc subroutine, or how many calls to make. But we know that in L1, the ith response will be C1. Okay, da-da-da-da. In particular, each expression this includes the same term K. Using the algebraic properties of SOR, we can therefore observe that this is true. The adversary knows every term appearing in the condition this, and can therefore check whether it holds. It indeed always holds in L1, and we might also guess that it doesn't always hold in L2. The specific choice of M1, MJ doesn't seem to be important, so we can write the details of our adversary as follows. Okay. Hmm. Mm, 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 mm. It is possible to show that the probability that A linked with L1 returns true is equal to 1. So what is L1? I think it's defined before, right? Yeah. L1 is this. We choose a key and then reuse it. And then L2 is just we provide a random... Okay, I see. So A is just encode and then encode again, return whether or not they're equal. And then to attack with a reused key, we have an arbitrary element. Wait, give me a second. Okay, yes. Arbitrary element and return this. Using almost identical reasoning as in the previous example, we can calculate that the probability of A linked with L1. Where is L2? Oh yeah, L2 is this guy, right? Yeah. So linking with L1, and this is pretty evident, question mark, at least from, because the same solution to this, right? You can just execute the same program, having 0 as input. The XOR is going to give you the key twice, and then with the one on the right, you're going to get, the probability is going to be different. For the probability of 1 over 2 to the n, you first pick some, so let's go to this example. Why is it that they're claiming that when you're linked with L2, you get a 1 over 2 to the n probability? Well, because in the first one, right, in the first one, you choose when linking with L2, you get a random output. You get a random n-bit string. And to make this condition be equal, oh, wait, no, this is different, right? Yeah, this is different. Let me think. Yeah, it's totally random. Wait, when we say arbitrary elements of this place, we're not saying anything about the distribution, right? We're only saying, yeah. So in that case, are we just assuming that M1 and M2 are uniformly distributed? I'm not sure. Let's see. Let's read this. The chat. You will need to know the definition of interchangeable for that task. Search for it in the chapter. Hyperisy. Why are you doing a block? Yeah. We had read already what interchangeable means. Why are you doing a blockchain project? Well, because blockchain has a lot of engineering things that are very interesting. You can land a job as fresher in every language. You just have to find a hiring company which uses your language. True. Before landing, you need to get an interview. Freshers need to be fresh out of college. It's called college hire. Otherwise, they want experience. We had a lot of career changes with hobbyist experience. The domain-specific knowledge of the company can't be required before the job. So basically, it does not matter how you employ, as long as they are eager to learn. Yo, let's go. Yeah, why Strathaven is saying it's true. Zero to learn. You can also safely skip stuff marked with a star icon. It won't be used later in the book. Oh, I see. Hyperisy says, show me one corporate position that says 2 years of hobby experience. You just ignore the amount of experience they want to hear and show them your portfolio. You won't get a job at Google or Meta and whatever, but you can hit a job at every medium-sized company. Pretty good. Okay. So I guess this makes some sense, because, okay, the only thing I'm not understanding is there is no specification of whether or not M1 and M2 are random. If they are random, it would make sense why this is 1 over 2 to the n. Because when you sample randomly, an n-bit string, and then you XOR it with another random n-bit string, we already know the distribution of the output of that XOR is also uniform, if I remember correctly. So if it's also uniform, this is the same as pick some randomly uniform n-bit string. If these two guys are random, the XOR follows the same logic. So imagine you first pick this one. What is the probability that this guy is exactly equal to this guy? Well, it's just, there's only one string across the many possibilities that you have. And since you are uniformly distributed, then it's going to be 1 over 2 to the n, right? But yeah, so I don't know. Because, okay, so I do want to learn this, right? I feel like I would be very interested in learning this. The only problem is that it's very long, and so it would take us, 1, 2, 3, then 4, 5, 6, all the way to 13 and then to 16 to learn what we actually need, right? Um, so that's my only worry, right? That like, so either, right? Either I learn this on my own, which is what I will do, and so it doesn't really make sense to read it on the stream so that you guys like, all the time here. Um, So what I'm saying, either we read this on stream, in which case we spend like 2 weeks reading it until we get to chapter 16 or something like that. Or I learn this on my own, and then we learn the important parts of it. It really depends on what you guys want. If you want and are completely fine with just learning cryptography and hearing me read all of the cryptography stuff, then I'd be more than down to do it. I just don't want to, bore you. Maybe some of you are expecting coding or like the actual thing we we say in the title. So I don't know. Poll time. Okay. I so, but before that, let me give me a second. I'll be back in. All right. Hello, my children. Okay. Let me read the chat. There's a lot of things that are being said. So poll time, yes. And then Hyperity says, besides, even if the hobby ride works, it would be slower than picking up a bachelor's degree. A BS degree from a decent uni is a much more successful route. It's simple just to go to a good college and they will help you get a job. Yeah, it definitely helps to go to a good college. But yeah, again, so you're gonna have poll time, I suppose. Um, let's go to chat to vote again. And let's see. So what are the two options? I guess the two options are read everything up to chapter 16, right? Up to chapter 16 on stream versus like, or only read 13 to 16 on stream. That would be the question, because we still have to read it. These are the ones that are sort of relevant, it seems, to our to like Bitcoin specifically. So do we want to on stream read everything up to 16 and those, right? Or only read 13 to 16 and then the ones from 1 to 13 we'll read on our own time, just so that we can be aware of what's going on, right? So that's gonna be the thing. So the poll option, it's gonna be here, right? Something like that. The first one is read everything up to chapter 16 on stream. And the or, it's gonna be the next option. Oh yeah. Also hashing. Yes, that's true. That's true. Only read 10 and 13, 16 on stream. 10, it's 10, right? 10 and then probably 11, right? The random oracles, I guess, yeah, from 10 to 16, right? Just the ones that are relevant to our thing, okay? And so let's just do only read this. Blah, 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 blah. I guess that's a 3. No, I don't want it to be 3. Can we change this? Oh no. Okay, restart the poll with the same options. Yes, please. Oh no. Brother. Brother, this is, you've ruined Christmas. Okay. Enter this, and then we enter this one too. Perfect. And then the question is, which one? I suppose, I don't know. Enter poll option, and let's start the vote. So enter 1 if you want to read everything up to chapter 16 on stream, or 2 if you want to only read 10 and then 13 through 16 on stream, or not only 10, right? The ones related to hashing. So yeah, let's do that. Start voting. So you guys just input 1 in the chat if you, or 2 in the chat, depending on which one you prefer. In the meantime, I'm gonna read the chat. Do. Oh, we have the first vote. Okay, let's see. I really like the ASMR vibe in the background when you read the book, so I'm all in for it. Okay, I see. If they're fair, they was more to go to college and get help. It's much harder to invent the wheel instead of following a process. Okay, so you guys are arguing about. Okay. Lolcat swag, brother. What do you mean 3? I agree. Does not make you inferior or superior. It just shows you finished the part. Okay, interesting. Allow some time. We have 3 votes already. The people should input their votes. Everyone that's watching the stream, put in your votes on which one you think would be more interesting, either 1 or 2. It seems like 1 is winning, which is good because then we get to read a lot. And let's see. Let's see. We have, it's 12:35, so let's allow 5 minutes, okay? Lolcat swag, yeah, put your vote again. It didn't count the first time, yeah. Lolcat, put your vote again. Damn, option 1 is like winning by a landslide. There's literally no defenders of option 2. I didn't know you guys liked it that much. That's great to know, I suppose. Sort the chart, pie chart, bar chart. Oh, I think this one's better. Hmm. What are we voting for? We're voting for these options, right? Which one do you prefer? Either to read everything up to chapter 16 on stream, or only read 10 and 13, 16 on stream, right? So Jab 1, for example, says, no, why would we read everything? Let's just read 10, 13, and 16, which are the ones that are relevant to us. Yeah, so we have that. What are you reading? We're reading this, The Joy of Cryptography, which was a resource provided by Andrew. We're reading from one, right? So we need to learn some cryptography so that we can. It's not necessary, right? Like we a simple Google search of what these things are would suffice. We just want to really learn it, like really learn it. And so we're debating, okay, let's read this resource. The chapters that are relevant to us are 10 and then 13 through 16. Or we should read the entire chapters that lead up to 16. Thing is, like an average chapter looks something like this, right? It's like pretty long. So it would mean that we would have to do like a huge amount of reading. It's actually like, now that I look at it, most of it, it's like not very relevant to us. But that's okay. I guess we just learn probability in cryptography. So that all of this is a single chapter. So repeat these 16 times. Okay. Yeah, repeat that 16 times and then we'll be able to work on the thing. So yeah, now that I think about that, right? Now that I think about that, it may be too much reading. I do have to say, I honor my promise to do what the poll says. Right? I honor the promise because you guys are the ones watching the stream, so I want to know what you guys prefer. But yeah. Wait, is it allowing multiple choices? Yeah, no. Don't allow both changing. Okay, perfect. It seems like everybody wants to read everything, so let's go. Um, do, 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 do. But yeah. All right. I said it was 5 minutes, one more minute, but I think the winner is, it's determined already. Okay, so 12:40. When we get to 12:40, I'm gonna stop it. What is this? Oh, no. Okay. 12:40. Okay. We're gonna stop the voting now. And it's very clear the option 1 won. So we're gonna read everything up to chapter 16, so let's continue. Let's see, chapter 2. Chapter 2. We were over here. Yeah, we had already read this. We had read this. Interchangeable libraries. We read this already. Where were we? Yes. We read this also. We also read this. Okay, there you go, here. Attacking OTP with a reused key. Yes, this one we used already. This attack generalizes the first example, which can be obtained by fixing m equals to the 0 string, right? In a sense, we have shown that there is nothing particularly special about the all zeros plaintext. Yeah. Example, attack an OTP with a reused key. One useful strategy is to start with a skeleton adversary with many details missing. We haven't decided yet which MI values to use as inputs to the OTP enc subroutine, or how many calls to make. But we know that in L1, the ith response will be Ci. In particular, each expression Ci includes the same term k. Using the algebraic properties of XOR, we can therefore observe this. All right. The adversary knows every team appearing in the condition here, every term, sorry, and can therefore check whether it holds it in, well, and can therefore check whether it holds. It indeed always holds in L1, and we might also guess that it doesn't always hold in L2. The specific choice MI, MJ doesn't seem to be important, so we can write the details of that. But I think we already looked at this, and we justified why this was 1 over 2 at the end. Yes, this final attack example also demonstrates a useful strategy that appears throughout the book. The XOR cancellation strategy. Yay! Express the values that the adversary would see algebraically as XOR expressions. If two expressions have a common term, then XORing the values will cause the common term to cancel out, and the result will often be useful in an attack. How to prove that two libraries are interchangeable? Well, in cryptography, as in life, you should always break down a complicated program into small, manageable pieces. Imagine if each subroutine is equivalent, then you get that the entire library is equivalent. Okay, we must show a certain pair of libraries are interchangeable. How can we break such a proof into smaller pieces? Since the equivalent operator is transitive, we can use the following idea. The hybrid proof technique is a way to prove that library start is equivalent to library end by demonstrating the little path in the middle. The intermediate libraries are called hybrid libraries, are chosen so that each individual step is easy to justify. I imagine you just replace each subroutine one at a time until you get to the end. The vast majority of security proofs in the book use this simple but powerful technique. Each individual step in a hybrid proof can be extremely simple. Every situation listed in 2.2.3 and 2.2.4 is used in some hybrid proof in this book. Another common step in a hybrid proof is based on the following observation. So there's a chain rule. If L1 is equivalent to L2, then for all L star, we have that L star linked with L1 is equivalent to L star linked with L2. Here we're interpreting L star linked with L1 as a compound library. Okay. The proof, which, makes sense, right? For every call in program A, we have that the probability that A, it is an associative operation. So then we get this. We know that L1 and L2 are equivalent, so the program is exactly the same. That's 2. And then in 3, we just associate, and then we get the same thing. Perfect. An example of a hybrid proof, right? Let's look at the following example that nicely showcases several common kinds of steps that can be used in a hybrid proof, including claim 2.4.1. Let me see. Let's see. Did we figure out how to make Sharif coins? Not yet. You guys are talking to each other here. So we invite everyone over. Have you learned how to raid? Actually, I have been trying, but it seems like Twitch doesn't let me. We can actually try at the end of the stream, try and see if we can raid someone. It didn't work the last time that I tried it again, unfortunately. But yeah, the following two libraries are interchangeable. All right, so we get this guy and this guy. Okay, and then we return this. Why? Okay. We do know that when we get a random key of sorts or a random n-bit string, that thing stored with the same message has sort of, from the perspective of an outsider, it's equivalent to choosing a random n-bit string, which means y can be interpreted from the perspective of the outsider to be a random n-bit string as well as x. So the same thing would happen here, right? Yeah, there is no way to distinguish the two. Okay, no, like we see this and the proof sort of makes sense, right? But let's take a look at the hybrid proof, right? The sequence of hybrid libraries is presented below. It contains 5 intermediate hybrids. Whoa. Besides the starting and ending libraries. Later in the book, we will disclose more intuition and strategies for generating your own hybrid proofs. For now, your goal should be to simply understand why each pair of consecutive hybrid libraries are interchangeable. That is, why each change has no effect on any calling program. We have a hybrid sequence. The starting point of a hybrid proof is library lxwallstamp1. So we get this library, right? Then we continue to the next one. Okay. We first introduce a new variable x prime, which is not used anywhere. This change has no effect on the calling program. That is true. You can check for yourself, right, that x and x prime always hold the same value. X and x prime. It therefore has no effect on the calling program to change a reference to x into a reference x prime. What I mean by this? Oh yeah, of course, because the XOR, right? Storing this, if we expand this, we just cancel out, so we get the original guy, which is great. Okay. We want to argue that y is uniformly distributed, and we can do so by observing that y looks like an OTP ciphertext, yeah, exactly, as the key, and m as the plaintext. All right, to use this fact, we first factor out the computation of y in terms of this. I see, factoring out these statements leaves us with a compound library that has no effect on the calling program. Okay. And so now what we end up doing is we end up saying, well, from the perspective of an outsider, y just looks like a random string, so we can just replace it. Yeah, exactly. We use the equivalence of those two, then we replace, and then we end up with the final program. Pretty good at it. That was a very cool proof, like especially, that the animation also helps. There's one step the proof that may seem mysterious. We introduce a new variable x prime that always holds the same value as x. To see why the new variable was necessary, let's focus on the following step on the proof. So we have this, you have this, you have this. This step works because we have essentially renamed the variable x in libhead2 to the variable k. If we had not introduced a new variable x prime, the step would have gone like this, which is, yeah, not true. Okay, let's see. The three-hop maneuver. Let's focus more closely on how we moved between, well, new sections. So let me move the chat. Whoa. What is this? Obviously, you have to apply to an open position. So you told me that you can then after arguing, you said, okay, guys, why are we arguing about this? I feel like there is nothing to argue about. Right? I feel like, I'm so sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your name, but Weiss Streifen? I'm going to say it that way. Let me know how to pronounce it, but for now, Weiss-Streifen is just saying, like something that happens at their company is to whoever they apply, they invite them over. If they have no open positions, there's nobody to invite because why would you invite them, right? I feel there's nothing to argue here, right? Like, why are we discussing this in like a random chat of some random stream, right? Yeah, I can assure you we are not the only company in the world that gives every applicant a chance, right? Yeah, what are we arguing about? Invite hobbyists to apply to his position, but currently are not looking. Yeah, I mean, you cannot really, you cannot really apply to positions that are not open. I'm not sure what your positions are, guys, but this does seem like a very weird debate to be having. There's like, yeah, what is the problem? I don't understand. Anyways, one company to rule them all, and then Agnes find them. Uh, but oh, I see. Hyperacy is saying, show me one company that hires with 2 years of hobby experience. Yeah, but that doesn't mean that the positions have to be open right now, right? If Weiss-Streifen's company has done this, then they can just cite it. But yeah, I agree. Both sides, both sides have their own thing. But I don't think it's the appropriate place to have the debate, right? But yeah. you definitely. I do think you can have a job as a hobbyist. I don't think there's something like specific that you would need from a college degree. In fact, if I remember correctly, does Michael Reeves have a college degree? Michael Reeves, did he go to college? Oh, yes, he did. Dropped out after about a year before leaving to work as a software contractor. Okay, yeah. There you go. And then he was hired by the Hawaiian government, etc., etc., etc. So, well, there are examples around. Um, Anyways, now you're not an example of what you would propose. um, do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do. If you propose that you can get a job as a hobbyist, I ask for an example. That's okay, guys. Not right now. People need a job right now, not yesterday. And people find jobs right now. They just have to apply to companies that are not like starts an attitude. Okay, guys, let's end the debate. It's not a place. Plus, it's not like a very interested debate either, right? Like you're always going to be able to find a company. Like you don't necessarily need a college degree. I do say I would recommend a college degree. It's definitely a good thing. Um, but yeah, I feel like both of you guys are agreeing. Like, yeah, why Stryfen is not saying that having a college degree is bad. In fact, they said like, oh no, it's actually easier to get a job if you have a college degree. They're just saying that it's possible to obtain a job if you're a hobbyist, um, which is also true, right? It's possible. I assure you, if you go to somebody that maybe has a startup and you tell them, "Man, I don't have a college degree, but look at my projects and hear me out, right? Like, let me have a meeting with you." Da 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 da. Da. You definitely can get a job, right, without necessarily going to college. Would going to college make it easier? Yes, and in fact, it is recommended. Plus, you meet a lot of people in college. Plus, you get the sort of advantage of working in teams in college rather than being always on your own. Um, so yeah, right. Like there's some rare genius people that will get a job without a college degree, but they're geniuses, not a hobier. I see. I see. Yeah, I mean, this all really depends, but I think you guys are defending sort of you know, like your sides of the argument are not mutually exclusive. Uh, to be completely honest. Yeah, they can definitely coexist. Let's see. We have the three hop maneuver. First, we factor out the highlighted lines from the library on the left so that a separate instance of that. The net effect of these three steps was to replace the two lines. Yes, I mean yeah, this is just transitivity. Yeah. Okay, some of these. I'm sorry if I'm skipping through some of these, but some of these are you know some of these are a little bit more intuitive, right? It's like so I'm gonna skip some of them. Syntax of primitive specifies its basic row interface. Yes, I mean this makes sense. Syntax of symmetric key encryption. Okay, a symmetric key encryption scheme consists of the following algorithms: ENC, a possibly randomized algorithm that takes a key and plaintext M as input and outputs a ciphertext; and DEC, a deterministic algorithm that takes a key K and ciphertext C as input and outputs a plaintext M. The set K of possible keys is called the scheme's key space, and similarly M and C are called the plaintext space and ciphertext space, respectively. We sometimes use sigma to refer to the encryption scheme as a whole, denoting the scheme. Okay. But yeah, the syntax of primitive specifies its basic row interface. What are its algorithms? How many inputs and outputs are there? And then what are their types? Correctness properties are the basic functionality we expect from the primitive that do not involve any adversary. Things like decryption should be the inverse of encryption. Security properties are guarantees that hold in a specific attack scenario in the presence of an adversary. Yeah, okay. An encryption scheme could satisfy a correctness property, right? Correctness for SKE, symmetric key encryption. An SKE is correct if encryption and decryption are inverses in the following sense. Yeah, perfect. For all m belonging to here and k belonging to here, the definition involves a probability because this guy may be a randomized algorithm. We will see several security goals for SKE, but the simplest is the one we have been considering for OTP. So did they describe SKE? They just gave us the syntax, right? So I imagine, I mean, it's not like it's one algorithm, right? It's an entire, yeah, I guess so. For all m belonging to here, and the definition involves a probability because this may be a randomized algorithm. Okay. An SKE scheme sigma has a one-time secrecy if the following two libraries are interchangeable. One-time secrecy. Okay. So if the following two libraries are interchangeable, what does that mean? So we grab a random key, we grab the ciphertext, and then we return. Okay, makes sense. This can be translated, an encryption scheme has one-time secrecy if its ciphertexts are uniformly distributed. When keys are sampled uniformly, kept secret, and used for only one encryption, and no matter how the plaintexts are chosen. Our security definition is a template meant to be filled in. If we have a particular encryption scheme, sigma, in mind and want to prove or disprove its security, we populate the template with the scheme's key space k, encryption algorithm enc, and ciphertext space c, then compare the resulting two libraries. Yes, I mean, thing is, we understand this. The scheme does not satisfy the correctness property. Yes, because we do an AND. Every plaintext to ciphertext 0, we saw this already. Construction C, modular way to combine encryption schemes. Let sigma 1 and sigma 2 be encryption schemes for which this is true. That is, sigma 1 can encrypt keys for sigma 2. Define a new scheme sigma star as follows. Okay, cross product of these two. Sorry, a Cartesian product. Sample new k prime uniformly. Use k to encrypt k prime, resulting in ciphertext C1. Use k prime, not k, to encrypt m, resulting in C2, and send both of these. Yeah, that makes sense. What I've just described is a recipe to construct a new, complicated encryption scheme out of an existing, simpler one. The recipe is modular. It doesn't specify exactly how Alice uses k prime to encrypt m, or how Bob uses k to decrypt k C1. We can imagine plugging in any encryption scheme into this recipe, maybe even different schemes for the two different encryption steps in the recipe. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so keys inputted in both of them. C1 is just a product of these two. The coding just sends it through each of them. Makes sense. Okay. Yeah, this is also first example of an encryption scheme. Oh my god. Okay, I feel it's feels a little bit it's a little bit too much to read in a single sitting the entire chapter and then knowing that we have like 10 more to go or 13 more to go. I think we should take a break. I may also revise the fact of whether or not we want to read everything up to chapter 16, because chapter 10 and then 13 through 16 are already a lot of content. So if you guys want to hear me read, then we can definitely do it with those. But yeah, it seems like all of this content, it's, despite interesting, not related to our main pursuit. I definitely think it would be more interesting if we read the things that are related to what we see. If during those chapters we find something from previous ones that we need, we can go back and visit them. And then after that, right, then continue reading the Bitcoin white paper. But yeah, let's do that. So currently it's 1 p.m. where I am. So I feel we should take a break, probably a 1 hour break, I would imagine. And then after that, we'll continue from 2 to 4, I think. So yeah, I think of it. I'm so sorry, guys, but I think I'm gonna make the decision to jump to the hashing section. Seems some of the sections seem to be very, independent, and then transition to the asymmetric one, so that then we can continue with, our main goal. Because once again, it seems like despite these being related, um, they, they're like like a little bit too branched off for the purposes of our pursuit. So yeah, I think we're gonna go with that. Um, Let me see. So but the new ones are so ugly. Okay, when are you gonna do C programming? We've done that for like 3 weeks. We coded an entire memory allocator from scratch. So now we're gonna learn Rust. Yeah, he did that the last few days. Yeah, Spotus42. It says, "Are you uploading these VODs on YouTube for permanent archive?" Yes, I'm uploading them to the channel with the same name, Sharif Sackbots. So yeah, they're there for archive. Not all the VODs are alright, these VODs. Uh, Not all the VODs are available still because yeah, studioyoutube.com. Not all of them are available because like Twitch takes a long time to upload the VODs. And so yeah. Internet it's a little, slow. Contents. So you can see that, oh, this one was just published, making a reg lecture intrusive, right? So then we can go and I think we can just upload. Yeah, Dolman63. Yeah, my words per minute is like 70, but I still have to look at the keyword to do it. Somehow, number of viewers is the same as it was before you started the book, so it seems to not affect people as much. Yeah, it does affect me though, because then I'm like, oh, dude, come on, like we want to like I want to actually read the Bitcoin paper, because my only problem is we're going to read this, but since we're not going to use it, we're going to forget later. It's not going to be of like much use. I would prefer to do this in like my free time, um, and actually, read the contents that relate to it. Because now it seems like, it has a very specific purpose. So then we can read it and then go back if we ever find something that is that we need to revisit. Then we go back to those chapters and we read the main chapters. Um, but yeah, I'm sorry because I didn't realize like how long the chapters were, because like you can see all of the amount of time, right? So the contents of, for example, interchangeable libraries, right? It is an intuitive definition, and I'm like, yeah, this makes sense, right? So then this entire chapter, I basically like, right, maybe we could have skipped it and just go to the to another one, and so on, or like, oh, maybe we're not going to use this at all. So I think the way to tell that would be read the main chapters and then go back and say, oh yeah, we can take a look at this, and see, okay, does this make sense, right? Like that's the way we verify, yes, we actually need this content, actually need to learn. Yeah, it's just the fact that like it's going to take a long time. For example, right, reading a single chapter takes us an hour and a half or 2 hours, around that time from what I've been seeing in the clock. And that means if we're going to read 16 of them, that's going to be 32 hours, which is absolutely insane, right? And we wouldn't have even started with the project at all. And so that's what worries me, because then it's just going to be me here sitting, reading for like, 8 hours straight, at some point in time lose focus and then not actually learn. So I feel like, yeah, going to those chapters, read the chapters we are interested in very well, instead of like going through chapters and just skipping and saying, yeah, I know this, blah, 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 blah. Read those really well. And then, at least personally, I'm going to be able to enjoy it more. And it's still going to be plenty of content because remember, it's like 2 hours per chapter. So then 10, like all of these is going to be like 10 hours of readings. So it's, it's still a lot if you guys still want to hear me read. But yeah, now that I just hadn't realized how long the chapters were. I'm very sorry on that sense. But yeah, I guess we'll enter a break. Okay, we'll enter a break, and we will come back at 2 p.m. PST. Okay, so look that up. Where what the thing. Uh, let's see. Is in the crypto algorithm shenanigans used also in the AI shenanigans? I am not sure because we don't know the crypto algorithms yet. Yeah, right line of scrimmage. I'm not sure what scrimmage is. What is a scrimmage? Scrimmage definition. An informal practice game, a play period in football, or a rough, confused struggle. Interesting. Okay. Then some of math intersects, but not a lot. Oh wait, you're responding to someone, right? Smart. Oh, between AI and crypto. Also, basically not. Did you go to uni? Are you asking me? If so, yes, but I'm currently still in university. No, he's a genius like you and me. We're all geniuses here, yeah. In 1 hour, Pacific. Yeah, 1 hour. Yeah. So currently it's 1:07. So I guess we're gonna come back in 50 minutes actually. Yeah, Pacific Standard Time. Will you end stream or go in break scene? So I'm going to go on. That's a great question. I think we should end the stream so that when I turn it back on, the notification will tell you, "Oh, come back!" Right? It's difficult, between so many time zones. It's difficult to be like, "Oh, yeah, come back at this time, whatever." Hyperity for grad or undergrad? I'm still an undergrad. So yeah. Anyways, all right, guys. Shoo-doo-doo-doo. I will see you in 50 minutes from now. It's 1:10 currently, so we'll come back at 2 p.m. PST. I'm going to turn on the stream again so that you guys can come back to remember to follow. Yeah, I'll see you because I also need to eat. That's another thing. So yeah, we'll see you and then I'll continue. All right. Remember, we're continuing at 2 p.m. PST. All right. Bye.